Hello everyone. And welcome to another part of What If Deku Was Iron Man. I hope you enjoy. And if you do, please like and subscribe. It really motivates me to make more. I did not write this story. The writer is mrkage. Please make sure to support them. Now let's dive in. Melissa, along with thousands other people, chanted out the slogans, showing her anger towards Japanese government. Her throat was raw and mouth dry, but she kept going, rage fueling her actions. She, as many others, had a simple black t-shirt with the Iron Man's helmet on the front, while on the back were words, "Quirkless Hero," in bright green color. She came here for a week from Island, to join the protest that was going for little over a month now. When she watched the sports festival and saw that boy, who was barely 2 years younger, and his armor, she was astonished. Her attention was completely focused on him, standing up against people with pretty powerful quirks. At first she assumed that he had some kind of intelligence quirk. But then he called that he's quirkless, making her jaw drop on the floor. After the festival she joined many forums about him and his armor. She didn't know that it was based on old, American comics. She indulged herself in many conversations and speculations about just how exactly this suit functioned, showing off her knowledge. Then Izuku Midoriya himself joined one of the forums. Needlessly to say, that he received a warm welcome. In one of his posts, he hid a message, saying that he's going to become a hero. Her respect for the teen rose even more. But with it came a self-disgust. She was ashamed in herself. As a fellow quirkless person, she understood the pain he had to go through. Even if in USA things looked more bright for quirkless than in Japan. Especially now. But unlike him, she gave up on her dream of becoming hero. Boy showed that one could be both inventor and hero. She wanted to meet Izuku Midoriya, but she feared that she wouldn't be able to look straight into his eyes, due to her guilt. While there was no doubt that she had calmed down with explosions, mayhatsum would always be mayhatsum, meaning accidents would still happen. Such as the on the last Saturday. She was experimenting with some chemicals, trying to come up with a suitable mix. Izuku suggested that she could make custom arrowheads that would do all sort of stuff. This was a very good idea, she expected nothing less from her brilliant boyfriend. So while trying out different formulas for her explosive arrow, she did a small miscalculation, which resulted in huge combustion. It wasn't so bad, none of the equipment suffered, only walls were blackened, making them need to repaint it sometime in the future. Puppy, as an adorable child he was, shielded her from the explosion. Well, mostly. Now, May wasn't the typical teenager girl, whatever that meant, but seeing her dreadlocks singed and broken, she knew that she needed haircut. But she refused to run around bald, so she asked Momo to contact that lady with hair-growing quirk to help her. While Woman kept working on her, just before she was about to make new dreadlocks, her girlfriend touched her hair and complimented it. Seeing as the girl enjoyed playing with her hair, which also caused her a great amount of joy, she decided to leave them at the shoulder length. She kept her usual side bangs, but the rest she put into the one, slightly messy bun, so they wouldn't tickle her neck. She would lie if she said that she didn't worry about Izuku's opinion. Momo assured her that he would love it, just like she did. Maybe this was that typical teenager girl act? You're beautiful. Her boyfriend said, cupping her cheek, before the lessons. No need to be afraid then. So as you know, final exams for the semester are coming. For the written portion you'll just have to study and hope that stress won't eat you. As for practical part, well, it's rather simple. You'll be expected to build or repair something. Maybe both. So be prepared. Power Loader informed them at the start of the homeroom. Oh, Midoriya and Hatsum, after lunch come to the principal office. He wants something from you too. May turned to Izuku with raised brows. Do you know for what? Her boyfriend shrugged. Most likely something for Hero's course exam. That made sense. They proved that they were reliable with that scanner's modification at the beginning of the year, so no doubt, Principal wanted them to make some cute baby. Being in close relation with man, wait he was an animal, would no doubt prove useful in the future. So what do you say? Principal asked, smiling kindly. After hearing out the tasks, he was greatly interested in them. Izuku peeked at May, who nodded, grinning widely. Both are doable. Although I have a proposition for the second request. But I would have to check it first. Understandable. Now, young Hatsum, you can go. I still need young Midoriya for something. Okay. I'll be in the workshop. See you later, she said, peeking him on the lips and leaving the room. So, he asked, curious in what Principal wanted from him. We're going to have a video conversation with someone. Actually, it would be more like you're going to have one. I'll only stay here to witness it, seeing as you're my student. Nizu replied, tapping on his tablet and putting it on the stand on the table. Now, that was something unusual. It sounded as something really important, judging by the way that principal kept playing with his paws to calm his nerves. Peeking at the screen, he saw that there was no name, just a number. Soon the person on the other side answered, and Izuku couldn't help but scowl. "Good afternoon, Izuku Midoriya." Prime Minister said politely with little, kind smile. "Sir," he replied, nodding lightly. Personally, he just wanted to end the call and go to the lab. But that would mean potential troubles. Scratch that, he already had problems with government. It's nice to finally meet such a fine, young man. I must say that your performance during sports festival was breathtaking. Man's voice was pleasant and with a hint of awe. He wasn't sure if it was fake or not. "Thank you, sir," he held back a snort. "Now, you may wonder, why am I calling you? It's about a new law and my reaction to it," he stated with edge in his tone. He wasn't stupid to not realize what man wanted. "If you want to propose some kind of deal, then allow me to spare your time." The answer is no. Politician let out a short, uneasy laugh. Now, let's not be hasty. I understand that you may be a bit bitter over it, but believe me, it's for the good of you and people like you. Like me? You mean quirkless? Powerless? Remains of the past. He greatly enjoyed seeing man's face fell. Let's do some math here. Adopting his thinking position and looking up, he took a second to remember the data. While for the world percentage number of quirklessness is 20, for Japan it's about 3. So a little more than 1,200,000. But most of the quirkless population comes from previous generations. Around 80%, if I'm not mistaken. That gives roughly 250,000, who are truly under the protections of this law. It was really hard not to smirk at the baffled expression of Minister. For me it sounds like discrimination. I assure you, Midoriya-san, that everything is perfectly legal. Man's voice lacked that cheerful tone from the beginning. Izuku snorted. Sure is, he narrowed his eyes and leaned forward. You won't get my arc reactors or my suit. This is my property. And don't even try to steal them. Or I'm going to make Japan regret it, he said gravely, daring the man to challenge him. Is that a treat, Midoriya-san? Prime Minister asked angrily. A sly smirk showed on his lips. No. That's a promise. You know, that I could easily charge you for threatening country? Politician stated in triumphant tone. You do that and my lawyer will take care of it in less than a day, he countered nonchalantly. Minister snorted. And who's your, oh so great, lawyer? My mom, Inko Midoriya. She's also known as the devil's advocate, da. Izuku admitted happily, grinning brightly. He really enjoyed how man's face whitened. He ended a call and fell back on the couch. Great. He basically declared war against the most important person in his homeland. He released a long, tired sigh and rubbed his eyes. He wanted to just go find May and cuddle with her on the bean bags. Then wait for Momo to join them, making it even better. That sounded relaxing, and relax was what he greatly needed now. That went well. Nizu stated joyously. Opening an eye, he peeked at the principal, who was grinning widely. No doubt tremendously amused by the situation. You think? Because I feel like I need to grab the nearest plane to USA. Izuku let out a humorless chuckle. What a mess, he stood up and flashed a smile at Nizu. I'll go now. Good day, Nizu. You too, young Midoriya. Leaving the office, he made his way towards the workshop. He was thinking about the talk with Minister. If push came to shove, he would have to unfortunately leave Japan. He didn't want to play some stupid game of hide and seek or tag. Maybe he could take that offer from I-Island and go to their academy? May would no doubt follow him. Momo, yeah, she would also go. All three of them promised to stick together, no matter what. He just hoped he wouldn't be a bad boyfriend for them if things kept being so grim. What were you reading during study period, Yamamo? Kyoko-chan asked, falling into the step with her. She smiled lightly. American Hero Law. Why would you read it? The girl questioned in interest. It may come useful if I decide to move there. While Kyoko-chan pretty much was her best friend, after May became her girlfriend, she doubted that the teen would understand her reasons. No one in the class knew that she was dating baby-making duo. And for now she wanted it to stay this way. Not bad idea. Things aren't looking great in Japan right now. The girl said, scowling a bit. See you tomorrow? She was pleasantly surprised by Kyoko-chan's comment. She remembered that the girl, while not entirely okay with new law, admitted that it was for the best. Like most of the class. The only ones outright saying that it wasn't fair were Ida-san, Tsuchan, Koda-san, Shoji-san, Kirishima-san and Tokoyami-san. And today Todoroki joined on their side, most likely taking part in class conversation for the first time. Even if it was only to tell 2 sentences. She sighed silently to herself. She hoped that maybe someday they all would see just how messed up this quirkless hero band was. When she came to the lab, she saw that Izuku was in his school uniform, kissing Mei for the goodbye. "Oh, Momo," he said, turning to her. "Your parents called me. They want to meet and check some papers." Right, the fusion of their companies. It was a pretty big deal, considering that her parents agreed with great joy when her boyfriend proposed this and relocation to USA. Miyashiro opened new branch in America a few years ago. It was doing somewhat okay, the biggest obstacle being the powerful competition from Norstein Corporation, which dominated the market. Kissing her girlfriend for goodbye, she accompanied Izuku on the way to her home. Due to being an heiress to the Miyashiro Industries, she had to know how to run a business. She couldn't allow her great-grandfather legacy to be taken away from the family. With her knowledge, she became a somewhat of the aid for her boyfriend, who surprisingly had no idea how to run a big company. He admitted that he left most of managing to Alan, who did many online courses on the matter. What she didn't understood was why he called her a mix between Pepper Potts and Black Widow. Who were those people? She would ask him later. She barely contained her scream in the train when he told her about his talk with Prime Minister. She was part impressed by him standing up to the man, which earned him a big kiss. She was also partly mad at him for doing this and wanted to hit him for this stunt. Following her mistress' teaching, she settled for both. She could only hope that they wouldn't have to flee from Japan in the middle of the night. Turns out there was a guest in her house. It wasn't that uncommon for business partners to come and discuss things. But she didn't expect the Norman Stein to visit. Norman Stein, the owner of Norstein Corporation. His company, while taking part in many markets area, was mostly known for dealing with militaries. They were the #1 supplier for U.S. Army. Man himself was called the Merchant of Death. He was fairly tall, in his mid-40s, with only a few gray hair here and there. There was that strange aura around him, like he would be your greatest friend, but wouldn't hesitate to sell you, if it meant money. He spotted them, stood up and walked to them, all while smiling friendly. "Ah, if it isn't the heiress to the Miyashiro fortune," Man said in rather fluent Japanese. He took her hand and kissed it lightly. Then he turned to Izuku, extending his arm. "And Izuku Midoriya, the living Tony Stark. I must say that I'm a big fan of old Marvel comics." "Nice to meet you, sir." Her boyfriend replied, shaking the hand. Stein-san pulled out a business card and presented it to the teen. "This is my number. If you want to strike some deals, especially about that suit of yours, then please call." Man nodded to her parents and left their residence, walking like he owned the place. "Momo? Do me a favor and make me a lighter. I want to burn this thing," Izuku stated in disgust, keeping the card as far from him as possible. She chuckled at this. She herself felt abhorrence towards the man. She knew that the boy would never sell his invention and turn it into the killing machine. Would a flamethrower do the work? He flashed her a smile. Even better. Now, we can talk about how to destroy this piece of paper and that chair later," Mother told them, amused by the situation. "Of course, Kayako-san," her boyfriend said, putting the card on the mentioned furniture. There was a gasp from Mother, who appeared to be hurt by something. "You wound me, Izuku. I told you how to refer to me." She shook her head. She was glad that her parents accepted her lovers and saw them as their own. But couldn't they wait with this kind of teasing until they were at least engaged? Which she very wanted to be, not that she wouldn't admit out loud right now or any time in the near future. Stupid teenager girl thoughts and fantasies. "Sorry, Mom," Teen said, blushing lightly. "That's my boy," Mother stated happily. Momo still couldn't wrap her head around it, and she decided that it was the high time to just save her headaches and stop doing it. Nizu kept watching a truck rolling slowly towards the massive warehouse near Support Department building. By his count it was a 5th one today. And it was barely noon. During last month, ever since young Midoriya funded the building, that was made with Cemento's help, the workers from Miyashiro Industries basically came here at dawn and went to their homes at dusk. As for deliveries, those were made non-stop. When one walked near the magazine, they could clearly hear the sounds of heavy machinery in use. He would be lying if he said that he wasn't dying out of curiosity. He wanted to know what was built there. But young Midoriya kept his mouth shut, not even uttering a single word about the project. Teen just smiled mysteriously with that glint in his eyes and said, "You're going to love this." Knowing his student, he would. He just hoped it would be soon. Nizu released a saddened sigh. It was shame that the boy was preparing to leave. If things didn't change, then young Midoriya would leave Japan before the end of the school year. Which was a very optimistic scenario. And with the teen, young Hatsum and Yaoyorozu. So many talented kids. All because of the greed and pettiness of the people. Ever since All Might's declaration a little over a week ago, Japan pretty much drowned in the rise of criminal activity. Honestly, he couldn't help but think that it was actually well deserved. Although it wasn't a direct result, government pretty much brought it upon itself. And all for an armored suit. "Alan, what are the statuses of my mails?" Nizu asked, turning to the monitor. "Both were received and are waiting to be pushed further. They sure work slow in the United Nations." AI informed with a huff. Considering that they're focusing to help China and Taiwan with those still ongoing revolts, it's not that surprising, he admitted with sigh. "Do you want me to send a reminder?" "Please do," he really wanted the matters to be solved as quickly as possible. Out of curiosity. "Why did you wrote that second request? It seems like a pretty bold idea," Alan asked, pulling out the file on the screen. Nizu smiled lightly and hopped down from his chair. He went to the windows and observed the scenery before him. It was a beautiful day, sun was high and shone bright, skies were clear, with only a small cloud here and there. It was serene and made his mind at ease. "To make something good out of this whole mess," he replied with conviction. When Momo came to the workshop, she couldn't help but frown deeply. Once again Izuku wasn't here. For the past few weeks he was busy running back and forth between the lab and that warehouse. All she knew it was that he was doing some kind of inspections there, controlling the progress of the project. From time to time he took Mei with him and they both stayed there till late hours. Of course they didn't tell her anything, saying that it was a huge surprise. Because of this their time together greatly diminished and that put her in dreary mood. Training sessions with Mistress helped a bit to get her mind of the subject, but the feeling of emptiness remained. Now that she thought about it, even Toshi trained with her every other day. Apparently he was also helping her lovers on the project. How? She had absolutely no idea. But that still didn't change a fact, that she missed her lovers greatly. But today was her lucky day. Mei was here, working on the holotable. She didn't see what it was, but that could wait. Her girlfriend had earbuds on, listening to the music and humming silently. A smirk crept on her lips. She made her way towards the girl and leaned a bit, just behind Mei's head. She licked her lips. She was going to enjoy this. Nearing in, she blew a hot air, right into her girlfriend's ear. The effect was immediate. The girl jumped slightly, letting out a high-pitched shriek, and turned around with baffled face and rosy cheeks. Taking out the headphones, Mei smiled brightly. "Momo. I didn't know you were here." Her girlfriend said in joy. "I just came in," she informed, straightening up. She took a step forward, trapping the girl between her and holotable. Peeking over, she saw that the image on device disappeared. No doubt Alan's work. Well, she would sate her hunger in another way. Putting her hand on the Mei's side, she slowly pulled it up, her fingers tracking the curves of girl's body. Her eyes gazed right into her girlfriend's amber orbs, that were focused entirely on her. She caught Mei's chin between her thumb and index, tilting the head up. She could feel the hot breath on her features. That only caused her excitement to raise even more. Hovering right above her girlfriend's lips, she waited for her move. When she did, Momo turned her face to the side, making the girl miss, earning a cute whine. She chuckled to herself, enjoying the discomfort of her lover. Lowering her face down, she brushed her lips against Mei's, but once again didn't allow a kiss to happen. Torturing her girlfriend for a few more moments like that, she extracted more and more of those adorable sounds. Deciding to grant her partner's wish, she kissed the lower lip, sucking on it slightly. Then she caught it between her teeth and pulled up, making Mei raise on her toes, to not break the contact. Just then she released it. She glanced down, observing her girlfriend's adorable, red face. The girl was breathing heavily, her chest rubbing against Momo's stomach, which in turn added more fuel to her desire. "You know, Mei. Ever since you and Izuku started disappearing to that warehouse to work on your babies there, I've became lonely. Very, very lonely." Her voice was low and sultry. "Sorry." Her girlfriend whispered, trying to lean for another kiss. She stopped her advance with her finger and let out a giggle that sounded a bit sinister. Oh, I'll make you sorry. Just before she could play a bit more with her cute lover, she felt something brush against her ear, causing her to jump a bit. A hot stream of air hit her neck, making her release a small moan. A hand petted her hair and she fought back an urge to purr. Aren't you bold, Momo? She heard Izuku whisper to her in husky tone. When did he came? She tried to answer, but a kiss with a little suck on her neck made her release a silent gasp. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to mess a bit with Mei to calm down her urges and fill in the loneliness. But now she was the one that was messed. Since when did her boyfriend had that in him? She tried to think of something to turn the tables around, but with him petting her hair, making her legs grow weak and her need of some form of physical contact, she succumbed into him ministrations. It only became even better when her girlfriend pulled herself together and begun planting kisses on her neck and jaw. Their hands roamed on her body, sometimes stopping on one place to give a squeeze. All of that turned her on even more, her moans and purrs proving just how much she enjoyed it. And because of this, when someone knocked on the door, she almost screamed in fury for them to go away. Really? Why did people disturb her moment of great joy? She wanted to ask Izuku to ignore it, but he just peeked her on the cheek and went to the entrance. She stood next to Mei, wishing that it wouldn't take too long. When door opened, her classmate, Ida-san, came in. Following him was a man, who was slightly older, but resembled the boy greatly. He also had some kind of mechanism around his legs and hips that hissed lowly with every move. Good afternoon, Midoriya-san. Hatsum-san. The teen said, bowing slightly. Hello. Her boyfriend replayed with a hint of surprise. I hope we're not disturbing you. The boy added, looking at them. No, it's fine, she replied, trying not to sound upset. They were, but she would let that slide, for now. So you're the kids who build that prosthesis for me? Man said in grateful and odd tone. Nice to meet you. I'm Tensei Ida, Tenya's older brother. So that was Ingenium? She could feel a nice, pleasant aura radiating from him. One that was very suiting for a hero. Man seemed to be polite and kind, he also lacked that booming way of talking that her classmate possessed. No problem, really. We're happy to help. Izuku replied, waving his hand in front of him. Man bowed awkwardly, due to the mechanism. Thanks to you, I'm able to walk. So please, allow me to show mine and my family's gratitude. If in the future you'd find yourself in the need of helping hand, you can count on Ida family. Straightening up, he smiled a bit. She couldn't help but smile. It was a very good gesture and sign. Considering all that happened lately, things like that mattered greatly for her and her lovers. It remained them that not all people were rotten. Out of nowhere, Puppy showed up in the doorway, carrying a paper in his palm. Robot stopped for a moment, gazing at everyone. Then it came forward, stopping right before the Ida brothers. When it rose at hand, Momo expected it to give a handshake. But a Hawaiian peace sign was shown to them. Her jaw went slack, Ingenium and Izuku were bewildered, and from the looks of it, her classmate's soul left his body. Suddenly a cold chill run shook her body. Turning her head to the side, she witnessed Mei with anger marring her features and something dark in her eyes. It was the first time she saw her like that. The girl crossed her arms under her bust and harumphed. Puppy, where did you learn that? She asked in innocent voice, that only empowered the feeling of dread she gave off. Her foot was tapping impatiently. Robot tilted its head a bit. This bad? Very. Her girlfriend almost hissed it out. So? Who showed you this? Boys 1B, Puppy admitted, gazing at its hand. Mei released a deep, frustrated sigh. The girl went to the corner of the lab, taking her bow and quiver from the shelf, before making her way out of the workshop. I'll be back. Punishment needs to be served. No one will corrupt a sweet child of mine, she stated gravely. They stood in silence, all of them utterly stupefied by the scene that just played. Save for the robot, which just kept looking at its palm. Ingenium coughed awkwardly into his hand, an uneasy smile on his lips. That was something. In her mind, she absolutely agreed. She considered making a small prayer for those poor fools that were about to be haunted down by her girlfriend, but she guessed that it served them right. Himiko giggled loudly, dodging yet another wide swipe made by Tamura. Honestly, she couldn't get enough of messing around with that guy. He was just so easy to tease. Don't you have something better to do, Toga? Dabi's bored voice came from the booth. Nope, she cheerfully admitted. This is like the only attraction this place has. She heard some grumble coming from the leader of the league, but she couldn't understand him. To be honest, this, oh so great, League of Villains was a pretty big disappointment for her. How could they even call themselves a league was beyond her. And don't get her started on the villain part. Tamura just kept rumbling about how he wanted to destroy society, kill All Might, how powerful and supreme the sensei guy was and so on. All while throwing out some weird, gaming comparisons. He really should get a life. Kurojiiri did absolutely nothing except for wiping the glass all day and calming down that sorry excuse of the leader. But he was a sweet, free taxi ride, so that was a big plus. Dabi just kept chilling in the booth, watching the news about that new law and problems it made. But she caught up to the fact that every time Endeavor was mentioned, a wave of negative emotions passed his face. She wanted to know the story behind it. Rest of the guys were peculiar in their own way. A showman. Stain's lover. Guy who run away from the psychiatric ward. And some kind of homicide maniac. She tried to find a way to kill her boredom, but there was literally nothing that could spike her interest. That was until she saw a corkboard behind a bar with the pictures of people. There was no particular order in there, all seemingly randomly pinned down. Scanning over the faces, she saw some pro heroes, Stain, with red X over it, and some of the kids from the sports festival. Her eyes widened at the sight of one person here. She needed to know it. Hey! Who's this? She asked, pointing at the picture. This is Izuku Midoriya. Kurojiiri replied, still drying off the same glass. A fucking cheat character. He's got items from higher floors. He's the one who put a hole in Hero Killer's chest. Tamura said, scratching his neck furiously. Why is he on the board? She questioned innocently. He's a potential threat to us. Depending on how the events turn out, we may need to kill him. Kurojiiri informed her. Oh. Can I do the killing part? She asked, bouncing up and down. A blush and a dreamy smile showed on her face. He'd look great covered in red. You're sick. Dabi commented in disgust. Giggling loudly, she exited the bar through back door. She kept her cheerful facade for a few more moments, before it fell. Her eyes narrowed, scanning through the alley between buildings. Confirming that not even a stray cat was here, she fished out a simple flip phone. She had a call to make. Whoa! Yamamo, your house is so huge. Mina-chan commented, marveling at the decorations around the entrance. She chuckled at the reaction of her friends. All of them were astonished, taking sights of her home. Which was absolutely understandable. Most of them lived in houses familiar to Mei's or in flats like Izuku. It began with her saying yes to help Kyoko-chan to study for the finals. But then more people came to her and asked for tutoring. She was excited at the possibility of inviting her friends to her and help them prepare. Not only it served as a perfect opportunity to hang around her classmates, but it was also something, what a class president should do. Not to mention a hero in training. So, where are going from here? Kaminari-san asked, still awed at her family fortune. Oh, we're still waiting for someone. They should be here. She didn't get to finish as something slammed into her, almost making her lose the balance. Looking down she saw Mei, smiling brightly at her, laying her head on her chest, while girls' hands were around her midsection. Her girlfriend said happily. Chuckling to herself, she lowered her neck to deliver a smooch on Mei's lips. This caused girl's smile to widen even more. Glancing up, she saw Izuku coming in, an amused smirk on his lips. He was carrying 2 bags, his and their girlfriend's. He walked closer to them, giving her half embrace and a small, sweet kiss. She really liked those. Sorry, I've tried to stop her, but she just couldn't contain herself, he stated, throwing a look at Mei. Don't worry. Nothing happened, she assured him, cupping his cheek. Ah, if those aren't my future daughter and son-in-law. Mother called, walking down from the stair in the business suit. Yeah. Mei called, waving enthusiastically. Good morning, Kaya. Izuku begun, but stopped himself, seeing Mother's stern face. Good morning, Mom, he corrected himself quickly. There. Was it so hard? Mother chuckled and pinched her boyfriend on the cheek. I'm going out. Have fun with your study session. Then she peeked to the side and smirked. You may want to do something with them, she sounded really amused. Suddenly she remembered that they weren't alone. Blushing lightly, she turned to her classmates, whose jaws went slack. In addition to that, Mina-chan kept pointing at them and tried to formulate any sentence. You 3 are dating? She finally exclaimed. Yeah. What's wrong about it? Her girlfriend asked, absolutely clueless about the situation. Yamamoto never told us about it. Kyoko-chan informed, still not completely out of her bewilderment. I wanted to keep it to myself for the time being, she admitted with small amount of guilt. Despite all the training she did with Mistress, she still somehow couldn't say to her class that she was in relationship. Maybe it had something to do with all that teasing she so greatly enjoyed. So, why are you two here? Do you also have problems with school material? Shiro-san asked, trying to change the subject. Actually only Mei has troubles. Izuku is here to help me tutor you all. Momo explained. Hey. The girl pouted at her. I'm not that bad. I'm 7th in our class, she stated proudly. Mei, our class has 10 students. Their boyfriend said in deadpan voice, looking at their girlfriend with hollow gaze. The girl's face fell and she blinked at them. Oh, indeed, she snickered silently at Mei's expression. She looked like an adorable puppy that was sad, because it did something wrong and got an earful from its owner. She kissed her forehead to get her mood back up. Anyway, we should get started. They moved to the study hall, an enormous room filled with tall bookcases. They began from the subject that gave them all the least trouble, which was English. To her surprise, Izuku was extremely fluent with this language, having no trace of Japanese accent whatsoever. She would ask him later about it. She was very pleased when she saw Mei, Mina-chan and Kaminari-san focusing on the lectures. All of them had problems with keeping their attentions for longer periods of time on something they thought as boring. Especially her girlfriend. So during short interval between lectures, she asked her about it. Izuku said that, if I do good on the exams, he will allow me to completely design new armor. The girl said in excitement. So basically she was bribed. Not that Momo had any problem with it. It was a great way to motivate their girlfriend. But still, she couldn't help but pout and gaze madly at the boy. Yes, he questioned her in strained voice. I also want to design your armor, she grunted out, making him chuckle. You can make next one. Hearing those words and seeing that brilliant smile of his, she couldn't stay angry at him. When their time for math and physics came, she let Izuku take the reins. He truly shone in those subjects. He broke down material to the simpler bits and patiently explained it. When someone asked a question, which was rather rare, he answered to the best of his ability. Even she started taking notes from his lectures. I think we should end for today, she announced. Sun was slowly beginning to set down, so it was a high time to stop. I'm beat. Shiro-san said, massaging his temples. Yeah, no kidding man. I feel like my brain fried. Kaminari-san admitted with long sigh. You sure, you weren't using your quirk? Kyoko-chan asked, snickering to herself. A mumbling reached her ears. Peeking at her boyfriend, she saw him in his thinking position, spewing out words under his nose faster than one could comprehend. She could almost hear the cogs turning in his head. Kaminari-san? How exactly do you use your quirk? He finally asked, gaining attention of the whole group. Huh? With that support item, you two built for me, I'm using small discharges. Otherwise I'm putting out one huge wave. The teen explained, looking dumbly. But that always leads me to shortcutting my brain, he added with weak chuckle. Izuku hummed and tapped his chin for a second. Have you ever tried to contain your electricity in one point? Like for example your fist? This way, you could have still used your quirk in CQC without the risk of frying out your brain. That also made her think. Her boyfriend wasn't the only one who was interested in quirks. Maybe you could also use it in a form of shroud around your body? No one would really come to you without getting hit by the electric shock. Wouldn't that also lead to him having some kind of electromagnetic field around his body? Mei asked, searching through her physics notebook. The three of them indulged themselves in the conversation about her classmates' quirk and possible applications of it. She had so much fun bouncing off ideas with them. Okay. Enough nerding out. You three are making my brain melt. Mina-chan vinid ludli. That got them to stop, turning to the group and chuckling awkwardly. Once again she had forgotten about her friends. Wow. I've never thought about that all. I'll give it a shot later at home. Kaminari-san stated, giving them a grin and thumb up. Yayorozu-san, what are we studying tomorrow? Ojiro-san asked. I believe that the only subject left is hero law, she replied, after going through the list of classes in her mind. Oh, Mei and I won't be joining you. We've something to do in the school. Izuku informed her with apologetic smile. She frowned a little. She actually hoped to spend the whole weekend with them. Why would you guys join us? It's hero law. Kyoko-chan questioned with raised brows. Because, we're also going to be a heroes. May exclaimed happily, hugging her and their boyfriend. She gazed at her classmates and saw their bewildered expressions. But what got her ire were the looks they directed at Izuku. Like they were doubting him and his ability to be one. And she knew that the teen would be a great hero. But she said nothing. She just kept peeking at her friends, daring them to say something. Midoriya-san, sorry for asking, but you do know that there's the quirkless hero ban law, right? Ojiro-san asked in weak voice. She took a sharp breath, putting together a word beat down in her mind. But before she could say anything, her boyfriend rose his hand and smiled kindly at her. Then he turned to her classmates with a wicked smirk on his lips. Who said, "We're going to be heroes in this god-forsaken country," he scoffed at them. Glancing at May, she saw the girl nodding with a glint in her eye and huge grin on her face. She herself smirked, her eyes narrowing. Seeing her friend's baffled expression was a very great way to end the studying session. May hissed in pain when a rubber bullet hit her, but forced herself to move before a drone could fire another one. Hiding behind a tree, she took an arrow from her quiver and equalized her breath. Putting the projectile against the bowstring and pulling it lightly, she peeked from her hideout. Drone, however, roughly 5 meters above the ground, swaying lightly from side to side, making a target shield on its top harder to hit. It was about 8 meters from her position. Steeling her nerves and taking one deep breath, she jumped out, rising her bow and zooming in with her quirk simultaneously. She only needed a second to pass, before she released an arrow. Projectile tore through the air and embedded itself right in the center of the shield. Drone lowered itself and landed on the ground, signaling that it was destroyed. Releasing a deep sigh and wiping out a sweat from her forehead, she looked around. So far her current limit of drones, that she could fight efficiently, was 4. She would add more, after getting comfortable with the current number. When Izuku and Momo presented her with this idea about a month and a half ago, she was rather skeptical that it would be helpful. Back then she could barely hit the center of the shield. But now? She could understand why it was beneficial to her. With this type of training, she needed to be constantly aware of her surroundings, keep moving, to be harder target for her opponents and learn to aim under a pressure. This was very useful. But goddammit, those rubber bullets freaking hurt. Once again her body would be bruised. She knew that it was better to suffer now than later, but still. Ouch! Going back to the launching station, she saw her boyfriend tinkering with an armor. Deciding that she did a good job, taking out the drones for the whole hour straight, she wanted a reward. And what could be better than spending time with her beloved? Most likely it would be spending time with him and their girlfriend, but she didn't complain much. Putting her gear next to the wall, she walked to him and all but collapsed on his back with loud groan. He chuckled a bit and peeked over his shoulder. How was the practice? I'm sore, she whined, nuzzling against his neck. And I want a reward. Reward? He asked in amused voice. Turning around, he grabbed her around the waist and gazed at her lovingly. What kind of reward do you have in mind? That hug is a good start, she admitted, getting as close as possible. She felt him kiss the top of her head, which made her smile. She liked when he did that. Tilting her head, she kissed him on the jaw. Izuku lowered his face and captured her lips in the sweet kiss. He always gave her those at the beginning of make-out sessions. Wasting no time, she threw her hands around his head, entangling her fingers in his hair, trying to bring him as close to her as possible. Suddenly a ping from the tablet came. Whenever that happened, her boyfriend had to go to the warehouse to inspect the work progress. She looked at him and pouted. She didn't want him to go yet. He gazed at her and smiled. This can wait a minute or two, he said, before kissing her once again. Now, that was what she wanted to hear. The written part was simple in her mind. There wasn't anything that she didn't study and her answers were 100% correct. She prided herself in the intelligence department. After the last exam, Mina-chan and Kaminari-san rushed to her desk, thanking her for the help. She was glad that they were confident in their results. Now was the practical part. From what her class heard from Kendo-san, it was similar to the entrance exam for normal students. In her mind, fighting robots wasn't all that challenging at all. Unless there was some kind of additional objective for them to acquire. Like keeping the damage under a certain level. You, students, are going to fight us. Principal happily informed them. She did not expect that. Fighting teachers, pro heroes, with decade or two of experience over them. Suddenly an exam became a rather hard to pass. Almost impossible. But she would tackle it and push through. She couldn't fail. Another great surprise was the presence of Bakugo here. From what she gathered from the announcement Kirishima-san made, Teen got a chance to go back to the hero course. Apparently his behavior improved and Nizu-sensei agreed to add him. But seeing that scowl on the boy's face and the look he gave to everyone around, she was doubtful about it. From her perspective, he was just the way he was. Going over the pairings between students and matchups, she quickly caught up to what was going on here. They were put against the teacher they had the biggest disadvantage to. Like she and Todoroki, who were against Aizawa-sensei. His quirk not only nullified theirs, but man also possessed a night raven, which gave him an air superiority over them. This would end up badly, if they didn't come up with a good strategy. The only ones left were Bakugo, who didn't have a pair, and All Might, who was in his business suit. Peeking at the Pomeranian, she saw him looking at the hero with weird, excited expression on his features. Number 1 hero apparently saw this too and chuckled slightly. Before you jump into the conclusions, young Bakugo, I'm not your opponent. Today I'm serving only as an overseer and helping hand to the recovery girl. Firecracker clicked his tongue, scowl returning on his face. Then if not you, then who I'm going to pummel into the ground? Blonde asked in anger. Right on the cue, they all heard a sound of the rockets. A very familiar sound to her. Snapping her head up, she saw Izuku diving from the skies at them. Before he could crash, he flipped gracefully in the air and activated his repulsors to slow his descent. He landed in the crouch, between them and teachers. Rising up, he turned his head towards the Pomeranian. Gashan. Bewilderment. Curiosity. Upset. Momo wasn't sure on which of this all she wanted to settle, seeing Izuku here. Why was he here in the first place? She knew that her lovers had a hand in hero course exam, but they never told her exactly what it was. Which was pretty understandable. If they said something to her, she would have an advantage and could prepare. She wanted to voice her thoughts, but a huge, deafening explosion stopped her. Turning to the Pomeranian, she saw his palm smoking, a giant, animalistic scowl on his face, while he was glaring daggers at her boyfriend. This would end up badly, she was sure of that. The fuck are you doing here, Deku? Firecracker screamed, taking a step forward. The small explosions danced on his hands. She saw most of her class wincing at the volume. They got used to not having blonde in their classroom rather quickly. I can answer that. Principal said joyously, stepping next to Izuku. This is your opponent, young Bakugo. Young Midoriya agreed with helping us to judge the progress of your therapy. Nizu-sensei paused for a second, letting his words sink in. While others pass their exam by fighting of the teacher or escaping, you on the other hand will be evaluated by the US. Your match will be the last one. She briefly wondered about the criteria of passing the exam for Bakugo, who was gritting his teeth tightly. She gazed at her boyfriend, as if she was searching for an answer. But something else hit her. This wasn't Mark II. This armor was more streamlined around the shoulders and armor on the chest was layered differently. The glass shielding arc reactor and repulsor had a triangular shape, which faced downwards. There was also a slight change in the design of the plates on the stomach area. Besides that, there was more black on the suit. Momo lowered her eyelids and stretched her lips into a tiny smile. Izuku, she asked him in the sweet tone. She caught a small wince from him. Good to know that she had that effect on him. Why wasn't I told anything about the new armor? She ignored the snicker from Midnight, who was no doubt proud of her. The teen laughed awkwardly and scratched his helmet, where the cheek was supposed to be. Surprise, he stated weakly. She shook her head in amusement. She could imagine that silly smile he had on his face, while gazing at her with uneasiness. She would extract all the things he didn't told her later. Everyone, please get ready. Board on your buses. Nizu-sensei stated, cutting off any potential conversation. Izuku nodded at her, before taking into the air, vanishing from her sight after passing the observatory center. They would have to talk after the exam. She peeked at Todoroki, who was waiting for her patiently. She saw that Aizawa-sensei flew in the direction of their exam area. Good, that left them with some time to strategize. Any thoughts, Yaoyorozu? The teen asked, after they ride begun. It's clear that we're at the great disadvantage here. Not only our quirks are going to be off the table, but Sensei can easily search for us and attack from the air. She frowned deeply. Honestly, they couldn't get a tougher opponent. I think we should go for the escape. The boy simply stated. This gained her surprise. She never thought that Todoroki would be willing to run away. He was rather prideful in his fighting abilities, but it wasn't that odd with a quirk as powerful as his. Don't you want to defeat Aizawa-sensei? She couldn't help but ask. The teen was quiet for a few moments, gazing at his left palm. I don't want to become a hero, who's only using a brute force to solve his problems. She smiled lightly to herself. Looks like Izuku's words really made the boy think about himself and who he wants to be. Her boyfriend really had that effect on people to bring out the best from them. Hello, Momo? Are you there? Mei's voice sounded in her earpiece. Yes. What it is, she answered. She didn't really expect the call. We just wanted to wish you good luck. Izuku said cheerfully. And sorry for not informing you about it earlier. It's okay. I understand. Go and blast through this exam. The girl exclaimed happily, making her chuckle. Catching sight of Todoroki, who was gazing at her with lost expression, she pointed at her headset. Izuku and Mei are cheering for us, she informed. Suddenly an idea struck her. She would need to kiss her girlfriend later. Smirking towards her partner, she said confidently. I've got an idea on how to beat Aizawa-sensei. When Shota proposed that he would take on Yaoyorozu and Todoroki, he was expecting some kind of direct combat or small skirmishes. Mostly from the boy, who really lacked in the teamwork department. Although this changed a bit lately. The teen became slightly more open towards his classmates. Those sessions with Hound Dog were really paying off. But now, after nearly 8 minutes of flying around the exam area, he still didn't caught the sight of either of them. They were still somewhere in this mock suburbs. But the question remained as to where exactly. Barely after the exam begun, he flew toward the entrance. He had some troubles with controlling Night Raven, due to those weights Midoriya and Hatsum made, but it was manageable. He was trying to catch the two off guard, but all he met was the giant, black smoke screen. Being wary of the potential trap, he shoot out his capture weapon and swung it across the cloud. True to his suspicions, students were gone. And so he begun searching around, trying to catch any sight of them. He kept close to the exit gate. If they would come after him this way, then he would take them out instantly. Of course, they didn't, which was a good approach. Most likely it was Yaoyorozu's plan. That girl really had a good strategic mind. And now, thanks to his beloved wife, she could fight. Dirty. If he got a hit to his balls, Narumi would pay handsomely for it. Something at the corner of his vision caught his eye. Swiftly stopping in the air, he faced to the side and saw a small patch of ice. Obviously it was left by Todoroki. It wasn't right. Ice was in the general direction of the gate, but it was still too far away for the teen to make it in one go, before Shota would complete the lap around the area. Was the boy a decoy, trying to drag him away from escape gate for Yaoyorozu to pass? Or did they lay some kind of trap for him? It really didn't sit well with him. Suddenly he heard a low whistle behind him. Dodging on instinct, his gaze followed after the object. Which turned out to be a great mistake, because a projectile was a freaking firework. It exploded with a loud bang and bright light filled his vision. Before his eyesight returned, more of those annoyances were fired at him. He quickly decided to lower his altitude, wanting to get as far away from the fireworks as possible. Somehow he managed to land on some rooftop without hurting himself. Lifting up his goggles, he rubbed his eyes, trying to return his vision to normal. He cursed at himself. Stupid, natural human reactions. Gazing towards the gate, he saw two figures with white sheets over them. Were they trying to protect themselves from his quirks? While it made sense, this also meant that they pretty much were blind at his actions. A grave mistake on the battlefield. He rushed at them, catching up in matter of seconds. Shooting out his capture gear, he grabbed the hold onto them and pulled sharply. Only to reveal two dummies held by crouching Todoroki. Now! The teen screamed. Turning around in slight shock, he saw a Yaoyorozu on the rooftop with a goddamn rocket launcher pointed at him. The girl had a feral grin that reminded him too much about his wife. A net was shoot at him. He wouldn't be able to dodge completely. It was too close to him and projectile was too fast. Twisting his body, he managed to only get his right wing caught. Unfortunately, this caused him to lose the control. Add to it the power carried by the net, and what he got was a painful slam against the house wall that made him groan loudly. He landed completely and discarded his jetpack. It would be useless now. He glued his gaze at Todoroki and activated his quirk, not wanting to get frozen. To his pleasant surprise, Boy ran at him and engaged in combat, not giving him a moment to recover from his crash. Kid improved a bit, Shota would give him that. Ducking under a punch, he slammed his elbow into the teen's stomach, making Todoroki lose his breath. He caught Boy's arm and threw the student over his shoulder, downing his opponent immediately. A quick steps reached his ears. Bending his body, he narrowly avoided a strike from the metal staff. Throwing out a blink kick behind him, he heard a pained grunt. He felt something cold creep onto his leg. Crap! He got distracted and left his gaze from Todoroki. He quickly corrected his mistake and looked right at the bai, stopping the quirk. His shoe was frozen, but that wouldn't be a big problem. Slamming his fist on Teen's face, breaking the nose, he jumped to the side. He looked at his students. They rose up, taking the fighting stances. Yaoyorozu gave her staff to the boy and took out her belt. Of fucking course Narumi taught that girl how to use a whip. Just his luck. Yaoyorozu started the attack, by using her weapon. He answered by shooting out his capture gear, making their tool entangle with each other. What surprised him, was that the girl begun pulling him. In the meantime, Todoroki ran at him, clumsily swinging the staff at him. Easily sidestepping it, but keeping both students in his sight, he kicked the boy with his frozen leg. He wanted to follow with his fist, but Yaoyorozu tugged harder, messing up with his balance. When the teen tried to attack again, Shota juked under the sweep and delivered a strong uppercut to Todoroki's solar plexus, making the boy gasp for the air. Downing him, and planting his leg on the teen's stomach, he peeked at the girl. "You're just wasting time. You can't beat me like that," he stated gravely. He didn't like that smirk on Yaoyorozu's face. It was the one he disliked the most, that basically said, "I know something that you don't." That plus pain. Lots of it. He felt a small pinch on his torso and then he opened his mouth in the silent scream. A stun gun. A freaking stun gun, held by Todoroki. He was proud of them, he really was. But goddamn it, he hated that device. His body had fallen on the ground writhing as electricity coursed through it, making him unable to do anything. He felt something tighten around his wrist. Team Yaoyorozu and Todoroki have passed the exam. Alan's voice carried through the speakers. "Sorry for that, sensei," the girl said, bowing lightly. "Don't be. You did what you have to do in order to win," he replied in his monotone voice. A small smile stretched his lips. Those kids really did a great job. He admitted that he got a bit careless. Those dummies most likely were the reason for his loss. Still though, one question lingered in his mind. How did you disappear at the start of the exam? He still couldn't wrap his head around it. "We've used a manhole near the entrance," Todoroki stated, applying the gauze to his nose, that Yaoyorozu created. "After that we've been watching your patrol route for a few minutes and decided our next steps," the girl informed kindly. Shota hummed to himself. "Where did you get the idea with fireworks?" He tried to not sound too angry about it. Yaoyorozu chuckled to herself. "I might have borrowed it from my girlfriend." He sighed loudly. Of course, problem children helping themselves around. But still, if what Nizu told him about the group was true, then he would let that slide. Those kids would become great heroes. He just knew it. Katsuki kept doing some exercises for the last 15 minutes. Not much to tire himself out, but enough to work out a good amount of sweat. He was going to literally blast his way through this stupid exam in record time and get back his destined place in the hero course. He didn't belong to those 5th grade characters from Gen Ed. He was a future #1 hero. He'd lost enough time as it was. All he needed to do was to just beat down fucking Deku. It would serve as a good occasion to put the quirkless loser back in the line. He gritted his teeth. It was this shitty nerd fault that he had to undergo those useless therapy with the dog breath. Ever since that stupid dream, Katsuki felt like something wasn't right. He knew what it was, but he never admitted it. Saying that he was scared of Deku would be ridiculous. He wasn't scared of that bastard. Nor that fucking toy. He would blast that thing into smithereens and beat the shit out of fucking nerd. Dog breath kept preaching to him about voicing his thoughts and emotions, not keeping everything inside and such. There were also those advices about being a hero, the proper behavior and other garbage things. He wasn't one bit interested in that, all that mattered was being strong. All Might was strong and everyone respected him, so there was no doubt that once he took his rightful place as #1, he would get the same treatment. So he decided to play along, seeing this as the only chance to the hero course. It only pissed him off more. Deciding that it was enough, Katsuki walked to the exit of his preparation room and stopped right before the doors. He glanced at the table, where the note from the rat principal was. It was his directives for the exam. He scoffed at it. He didn't need it. All that mattered was showing that he was at the top of the food chain and Deku was below bottom. The most natural thing in his mind. Momo looked around the observation room, taking sights of her classmates' faces. Those who had passed had a gleeful expressions, cheering loudly and talking between themselves about it. Not counting Todoroki, who opted to lean against the wall and quietly chat with Ochako-chan. Well, chat was a bit too much, seeing as the girl made most of the talking. But those who failed looked like a huge rain cloud hung above their heads. She felt bad for them, knowing that they would have to get remedial classes and not go to the training camp. Except for Mineta, he absolutely deserved it for all the perverting he'd done. It's time for Bakugo now, right? Shiro-san asked loudly. Oh yeah. Kirishima-san replied, immediately cheering up. No doubt he's going to pass. She couldn't help but roll her eyes at the statement. She didn't know what Blonde's exam involved, but there was no way that it would be easy. I'm not sure. Midoriya is his opponent. Ochako-chan said in doubtful voice. Yeah. And he had beaten down Bakugo during sports festival. Sato-san added, making most of them think. Come on, guys. There's no way that Bakugo is going to lose. He has his costume now and those stupidly overpowered gauntlets. Besides, isn't that Midoriya guy quirkless? What he can do without the suit? Mineta told them, so sure of himself. Momo tightened her fist. When on Monday her relationship became known to whole class, little pervert howled how the hottest chick was taken right under his nose. She did her best ignoring it. But this? There was no way that she would allow her beloved Izuku to be treated like this. You're wrong. Kaminari-san said strongly. That shocked her and some of the class. The two had rather good relationship and tended to perv together from time to time. Midoriya may be quirkless, but this doesn't mean a thing. He helped us study for the written exams and, alongside with Yaoyorozu and Hatsum, gave me new ways to use my quirk. The boy turned to her and flashed a smile. Besides, most of our equipment comes from him. Jiro's sound gun, Ashido's acid launchers, Ojiro's tail armor, just to name few. If anything, I believe that Midoriya will beat Bakugo again. Midoriya is already twice the hero some of us will ever be. Todoroki added with a trace of acknowledgement in his tone. Class delved into discussion about the matter, but Momo couldn't help but smile. She sent both teens grateful looks, thanking them for standing in the defense of her boyfriend. Doors opened with a hiss and teachers walked in, with Principal riding on the All Might's shoulder. They all stood next to the control panel. Now dear students. Let's stay quiet and watch this. It may serve you all as a great learning material. Nizu-sensei said cheerfully. The feed from cameras came alive on the monitor, showing the huge replica of some business and commercial district. The most noticeable thing that made the biggest difference between this and others' exams was the presence of LMDs walking around the streets. Robots were dressed in cloths, behaving like normal people during the workday. On one camera they all saw Bakugo entering the area, already running down the street, with a small support from his quirk, and looking around, searching for his opponent. On other video they could see Izuku, standing atop the tallest building without his helmet. The object in question was held by Mei. Her girlfriend was wearing her costume, which consisted from a pair of black, combat boots, tight pair of pants and a sleeveless shirt, both black with some pink stripes along the sides. On the girl's back was bow on quiver. Mei-chan? Why is she there? Mina-chan asked loudly. Momo also wanted to get answer for this question. As far as she knew, only her boyfriend was taking part in this. But of course she could only guess at this point. She heard Principal chuckle at them and peeked at him, only to witness a small smirk with a glint in the eye. All will be revealed in due time. Nizu-sensei said mysteriously. Looking back at the monitor, she saw Mei kiss the helmet, where Izuku's lips should be, and throw it off the roof. Their boyfriend smiled lightly and jumped off, catching the object and flying towards the location where Bakugo was. Momo wouldn't admit it out loud, but she also wished to be there to kiss the helmet. When he was first presented with the idea, Izuku was very, very, very interested in it. It was kind of ironic in his mind, him playing the part in the decision of allowing the blonde menace to be returned to hero course. He knew what the most decisive factor in it would be, but he was more than 100% sure of the outcome. Following the plan laid by Nizu, he flew to the area where Pomeranian was and landed on the building. He stood there quietly and waited. Next stage would begin any second now, and it all started with, "Found you, fucking nerd." That was faster than he expected. Gazing down, Izuku saw Firecracker on the street, who panted lightly from all the running he did. Blonde was glaring at him, a deep scowl as always present. Small explosions danced on the boy's palms, not being one bit intimidating to him. "I'll give you two choices. Get down here and let me beat up your useless ass. Or I'm going up there and then I'll beat up your useless ass. The temptation really was there. To answer and mess around with Pomeranian, just to anger him even more than he already was. But sadly Nizu instructed him to avoid any kind of conversation. However, when he looked closer at Bakugo, he could actually see that giving no reply was pissing the blonde off even more. Was this also planned by the principal? He should ask later. Time's up. Firecracker used his quirk and was literally rocketing toward Izuku. Unfortunately, until principal gave him the green light that he needed to fight back, the only thing he could do for now was dodging. Which was rather easy, just a quick blast from repulsors in his feet and off he went into the air, Pomeranian passing just a little bit under his boots. Flying away and turning over, to keep his eye on Bakugo, he saw the teen maneuver midair and speeding at him yet again. While this was happening, Izuku caught the sight of LMDs gathered around them and observed the fight, just like every day, normal people would do, when the skirmish between heroes and villains took place. Now that he thought about it, things like that shouldn't really be allowed. The risk of getting caught in the crossfire always existed, especially if someone's quirk was dangerous or affected the wide area, was there and could lead to the injury. Young Midoriya, shoot down young Bakugo and make the crowd run. Nizu commanded him. Raising an eyebrow, he complied. Taking an aim, he fired the small blast, making Firecracker lose some altitude, but not enough to down him completely. Deciding to literally take the matter into his own hands, Izuku flew at the blonde. Tilting his head to avoid an explosion, he punched Pomeranian straight into the face. And just to make sure, a shot followed, making Bakugo hit the ground painfully. The teen was surrounded by robots in the small circle. Firecracker slowly rose up and spat a blood. Blonde rubbed off the remains of the liquid from his chin and growled loudly. Just before Pomeranian could launch himself up yet again, he fired out a few blasts to scare LMDs off. Following their program, androids begun to run away as fast as their machinery allowed them. Some of them hit Bakugo on their way, angering the boy even more. One of the robots was shoved by others and ran right into the menace. Get the fuck out of my way! Firecracker growled, catching the LMD and throwing it off him. Android collided with the street lamp and got its head cracked in the process. Since the beginning of the encounter, all of them watched Bakugo trying to advance and get a hit on Izuku. For Momo it reminded a game of tag, but the only problem she could see here was that the Pomeranian didn't possess enough maneuverability in the air to catch her boyfriend. Standing rather close to teachers she could hear them murmur, commenting the fight as it went. They seemed extremely displeased with how Blonde handled the situation with civilians watching the scene. Which he didn't at all. It was almost like he didn't even acknowledge their existence. She furrowed her brows, trying to piece it together. The scenario here was as close to the real-life situation as it could get. Well, almost. The fact that Izuku didn't fight back, until Principal allowed him with a specific command, made her think more about the real purpose of this exam. What the hell? Mina-chan shouted, vocalizing everyone's thoughts. All of her classmates were bewildered by what Bakugo just did. How could one throw the civilian like that? It was absolutely ridiculous. In her mind it was the total opposite of how heroes should behave. Peeking at the teachers, she saw that they also were severely displeased by this. Aizawa-sensei crouched next to Nizu-sensei and whispered something, making the principal nod with pensive expression on his face. Nizu-sensei clicked on the communicator. Young Midoriya, you can engage young Bakugo however you see it fit. His voice was grave and somewhat saddened. Roger that. Can I use reinforcements? Izuku asked, while flying off from the powerful explosion. His suit was charred around its torso and helmet. Yes. Momo raised her brow at this. What did her boyfriend mean by this? She saw Mei earlier, so most likely the girl was part of it. But to her it sounded like there was more to it. Hawkeye, move to the Sector C4 and make yourself a new nest. Wait for the opportunity to strike. Negotiator, you're up. Negotiator? Momo tilted her head. She heard it somewhere before. One time, when she walked to the lab, she caught her lovers talking about the project with this codename. Of course they were really tight-lipped about it. Honestly, it started to tickle her off. She would make them talk and spill all of their secret builds. She was going to put down her mistress teaching into the good use. Wait, there are 3 of them? Kirishima-san asked loudly and turned to the teachers. It's not fair. Aizawa-sensei snorted and gazed at them. Life isn't fair. Get rid of the delusions that the villains will play by the rules. Despite his slouched posture, there was an edgy in his voice. Life of the pro hero is a dangerous one. All of you will have to face the challenge of being overwhelmed by the numbers or power, or both. All Might added, looking at them. Once again their teachers were right. Thinking that evildoers won't play dirty was childish. Momo grimaced, the thoughts of potential treats that she would have to no doubt face during her career started occupying her mind. She could only hope that she would be able to face them. Izuku kept his velocity rather low, because of two reasons. 1. He needed Bakugo to keep up with him. 2. He had to preserve his arc reactor. Nizu gave him a restriction of how much power he could use. Something about it being the challenge for him. Already he was down to 26% out of his starting 35. He really hoped that he didn't lose all of it before the end. Lifting the armor with just his muscles would be rather hard. Correction, it wouldn't be possible at all. Finally, after flying from almost the other end of the area, he had found the marked spot. Peeking at the map in the corner of his HUD, he saw that his teammates were at their positions. Good, time to get on with the show. Twisting in the air, he fired a repulsor blast. It barely missed, but the Pomeranian stopped nonetheless. The teen still kept his body a few meters above the ground with his explosions, but was wary enough to not rush in. Had enough of this flying around, you fucking nerd? Firecracker shouted, while panting lightly. Izuku narrowed his eyes. Bakugo was sweating like crazy. And while it was a good thing, because Blonde would slowly dehydrate himself, it also meant that he had more ammunition to fire at him. Glancing around he searched for anything that would help him. He smirked and marked an object on the side of the road. Right under his opponent. Whenever you're ready, negotiator, he said in smug tone. Lifting his hand, the plates around his wrist opened and from them the shocking disc shot out. It missed, due to Bakugo's jerk to the left, but it didn't matter. It was distraction anyway. Pomeranian speed at him, thanks to the huge blast of the teen's quirk, roaring loudly and extending his palm at him. A giant explosion engulfed him, shaking his suit and throwing him back a few meters. Damn, he wasn't prepared for that. Just before Firecracker could follow with another hit, a thick wire entangled around his foot and brought him down. A purple-colored glove punched shocked Bakugo right on the face and sent the teen to the ground with a bounce. Not being the one to let the chance get away from him, Izuku quickly aimed at the hydrant and released a much more powerful repulsor blast, ripping the metal open and unleashing a torrent of water straight at the Pomeranian. Now the explosive sweat was completely neutralized and Blonde's body cooled down a bit. He looked at his teammate and smirked. The negotiator armor mrkage was a lot more bulkier than his own, especially around the torso. It was necessary, due to the second arc reactor, more powerful cooling system and a gadget in there. In the back of the shins were additional thrusters, to help lift it up. On arms were especially designed add-ons that held a 3-meter-long wires, that were used as a whips. Those cables could run an electrical current to shock the target. There was also the plating, that slightly covered the fingers. Over right shoulder was installed a gun, that used the rubber bullets as its primary ammunition. The suit's main color was royal purple with secondary being silver and with some black here and there. Negotiator turned to him, the glowing, electric purple eyes gazing at him. Thought you're never going to call. Toshi said with fake hurt tone. Izuku chuckled to himself. He still remembered how his friend was screaming when he got his test flight in full armor. He wasn't sure if it was from the excitement or from the fear. But not, after nearly a month of the lessons the boy could fly almost as good as him. Sorry. You know how Nizu loves the drama and such, he replied with a shrug. The fuck? You're so pathetic, Deku. You can't beat me on your own, so you called your buddy. Bakugo screamed at them. His hair stuck to his wet forehead. There was a bit of blood running from his temple, but nothing too serious. He watched the blonde stand up on shaky legs, supporting himself with street lamp. The teen spat out some water from his mouth and caught his breath, before glaring daggers at them. Izuku was about to fly down at their opponent, but an alert came. His arc reactor was down to 20%. He clicked his tongue in displeasure. Looks like he and Mei would still need to work on the new power modules. Go and rest. Toshi said to him, landing on the ground. You need to preserve the battery as much as you can. Besides, I want to really test this thing. He could see the excited grin on his friend's face in his mind. He also wanted to see what Negotiator suit could do. Even if some of the gadgets were banned by the principal, the armor still had more than enough power to overwhelm its enemy. Taking the advice, Izuku sat on the rooftop of the nearby building. A short break would do him well. And his girlfriend was close enough to cover their teammate if things were to go south. Nizu kept his gaze close to the monitor and observed the exam. He did his best to hide his disappointment. Before the test begun, he went to the young Bakugo's preparation room. The untouched note made him saddened. He wasn't that sure about the boy's participation in the exam. Hound Dog reported the betterment in the sessions, that the student begun to open up a bit more. Of course there still was that loud and brash attitude, but it could be written off as the teen's thing. However, he still had some doubts in his mind. He and the teachers agreed to allow for young Bakugo to take the test to see how he changed. Turns out he didn't. The crude language remained, although it was the smallest of the concerns. One of the directives was to threat the exercise as the patrol until he caught the sight of his opponent. But Boy rushed in, using his quirk to speed up the process. It could be written off as the extensive quirk usage without the reason, which normally could get his license suspended for a while. Then the encounter with young Midoriya. It couldn't go worse in his mind. Jumping head in, without the slightest concern about the LMDs, that played the role of the civilians, was the absolute no-no. And throwing the person like that and telling them to get out of their way? That was one of the fastest ways to lose one's pro-hero license. The wild goose chase proved to lead to a damage of a few buildings, especially when young Bakugo unleashed powerful explosions to take down the suited teen. All of them left only a scorching marks on the armor and made young Midoriya lose his balance, but otherwise it did nothing. Then Negotiator came in. That made him smile. When his business partner came to him with young Shinso, who agreed to take part in the exam, Nizu was more than excited to see how it would go. Of course he had to see the suit before the test and set the rules for it. Some of the gadgets needed to be banned, because they would end the exam instantly. For example, the modified sound rifle, that was hidden under the thick chest armor, was a big no-no. Same with some ammunition for the gun. Other than that, he set the suit's starting power capacity for 60%. He peeked at young Yaoyorozu, who watched the exchange between the teens with even greater interest than her classmates. You seem rather surprised by the development. I mean by young Shinso having the suit, he addressed the girl. A small frown with a pout marred her features. They didn't tell me much about it, she admitted with a huff. Nizu chuckled at this. Looks like young Midoriya will have a problem in his paradise. Turning back to the screen, he watched the fight between the Negotiator and young Bakugo. Without his nitroglycerin-like sweat, the teen was powerless against the armor. Although it showed that the problem student had a good instincts, skillfully dodging the whips that left the marks against the pavement. That was until the gun didn't come into the play. A small rain of rubber bullets hit the boy all over his body, downing him instantly. Not giving the teen to stand up properly, young Shinso rushed in, with the small boost from repulsors, and grabbed young Bakugo by his face. With the use of build-up momentum and suit's enchanted power, the student was thrown at the shop, crashing the windows and demolishing inside, stopping only by hitting the counter. Young Shinso, please be mindful with your strength, Nizu said to the communicator. He didn't want to get his student accidentally killed. Also, young Midoriya, please prepare the final act. What's that? Young Uraraka asked, voicing the 1A's thoughts. He chuckled to himself, trying to not to make it too ominous. You will see. He was really proud of this idea, as it would serve as the best test to judge the blonde teen. Going back to watching, Nizu saw young Midoriya fly away. As for the Negotiator, he walked into the building, no doubt to occupy young Bakugo until Iron Man returned. Suddenly there was a blinding light, followed by the sound similar to thunderclap and a massive amount of black smoke. When the feed cleared, all of them saw young Shinso impaled deeply in the wall of the building on the opposite side of the street. The whole front of his armor was charred and the arc reactor's light bickered, turning off after a few seconds. Young Bakugo trekked out from the inside of the shop, a gray smoke coming out from his right gauntlet. A vicious smirk adored the teen's face. Right, it slipped Nizu's mind that the boy had those storage tanks in his costume. That explosion was truly powerful and made him worried about the student from Gen Ed. Examinee rose up his left arm and aimed it at his downed opponent. A finger grasped a pin. He was about to scream into the communicator to stop the teen from doing it, but something hit the gauntlet, breaking it at its bottom, spilling its content on the street. A camera feed changed, showing young Hatsum swinging down from the rooftop with the use of a grappling hook and some durable cable coming from the bow. The girl charged right into the young Bakugo, surprising him with a kick to the face, which made the teen stumble. The archer released the wire and rolled on the ground. Now, that's what he called an exciting development. When he heard, from the lamenting power loader, that the girl picked up the archery and set her sights onto the heroics, he was thrilled by the possibility of his student becoming one of the greatest long-range hero. Add that to her set of interesting arrowheads and you get a powerful supporting and information-gathering heroine. Young Hatsum didn't really waste time and begun her assault with the swing to the young Bakugo's side. The girl's bow must have been made from some hard and durable material, judging from the boy's pained grimace. Hawkeye, while not the best in hand-to-hand combat, was rather quick on her feet. Using hit-and-run tactic, she kept hitting her opponent and avoiding the swings from the teen. When a small explosions happened, showing that the student's quirk was back into the fray, young Hatsum didn't escape it quite well. Getting hit square in the chest, the girl was downed, falling onto the ground. On the side screen, he caught the sight of young Midoriya flying back, carrying with him the piece for the final act. Fuck them all. That was the only thing that was in Katsuki's mind, and it could easily apply all the meanings it possessed. Fuck that quirkless bastard and his armor for playing around with him like that. Making him chase the stupid nerd all around the city and refusing to put out the fight. If Deku didn't hit back, then it wasn't as satisfying as he wanted it to be. Fuck that side character in another suit. A little pussy with some weak-ass quirk, not being able to do a damn against him. So what if he got shot by those annoying bullets? So what if he got thrown into the building? All he needed was a one use of his stored-up sweat and job's done. Fuck that pink-haired bitch. Destroying his gauntlet, before he could blow up the big toy and kicking him in the face, while swinging down as some bloody monkey. Slut had some nerves to hit him with that freaking bow. But again, his quirk showed just how much superior he was. A small explosion and boom. Bitch eats the dirt. Now to find the fucking nerd end. A sound of the rockets reached his ears. Snapping his head up, he saw the bastard flying to him with one of those annoying droid that tended to get in his way. You've come to surrender, Deku, he screamed and activated his quirk, making small explosions. Quirkless Freak landed a few meters away and placed his hand against the stupid robot's head. No. Shitty nerd said strongly. This only irritated Katsuki more. I've come to offer you something. He snorted and narrowed his eyes. The fuck you have to offer? Not that he was interested in it. Surrender and you will save this and many other civilians. Continue fighting and I'm going to blow this city up. Deku told him with grave tone. That made him pause. Little bastard threatened him. And since when those fucking things counted as civilians? They were nuisances that made things harder. Wait. This was the exam and no doubt this rat principal had his say in this. And now he had to face the situation where he had to save the day. Just like All Might did every time. All Might was strong. Katsuki was also strong. And he was the future #1 hero. That meant only one thing. Putting his hands behind him, he rocketed at the nerd. Extending his palm and feeling the sweat gather on it, he readied the explosion. He was going to be a goddamn hero, proving that he was the strongest. A horn rung across the arena, following by the announcement. Katsuki Bakugo failed the practical exam. While there was no doubt that there were some pretty complicated things, physics had some rather simple laws. Take Newton's second law. If the force applied to the object isn't balanced by some other force, then that object starts moving and accelerates. In theory it could go to the infinity, if nothing stopped it. Same could be said about some actions. Once started, nothing could stop them from reaching its end point. Which is exactly why Izuku was caught in giant explosion, due to Pomeranian's quirk, despite the bullhorn going off. It was a powerful one, throwing him off a few meters, making him painfully hit his back against the asphalt. Even with shock absorbers in the suit, he just knew that in the few hours he would get bruises. Also he felt a bit dizzy. Great, a slight concussion. Just what he wanted. Still though, he couldn't help but wonder if it was Bakugo's plan all along or was the blonde menace just too shocked by the announcement. In any case, the hostage was blown into the bits. If it was a human? Izuku didn't want to imagine the amount of gore that would be spilled onto the ground. And him. Mostly him. Young Midoriya, are you alright? Nizu's voice rung in his helmet, stopping gruesome thoughts. Yeah. Never better, he answered with a groan. Glad to hear it. Gather your teammates, you three can go to your workshop and suit down. Thank you for the help with the exam. The principal joyously informed him. Standing up with a grunt, he peeked at others. Mei was picking herself up and massaging her shoulder with dissatisfied expression. Toshi's armor was still depowered, but there was no sign of any movement from the boy. Most likely the explosion putted him out cold. Hopefully he wouldn't have to drag his friend to the nurse office. As for Pomeranian, he stood frozen at the center of the street, gaping at his palm with head hung down. The disbelief marred his features. Izuku huffed a bit. Bakugo had only himself to congratulate for this result. There was a big list of things he could do differently in the exam to pass. Or life in general. But it wasn't his problem. It never was. Still, he couldn't help but feel just a hint of sympathy for his old bully. His dreams and hopes just shattered. A feeling he knew too well. Izuku counted that someone would be able to aid the boy, with at least setting him up straight. Usually it felt nice, when you were right. You felt that your thought, effort, knowledge and instincts were rewarded by your correct choice. That gave you confidence and boosted your ego slightly. But right, not Shota didn't want to be right. It was logical conclusion, to which he got after few almost sleepless nights, huge amount of caffeine he pumped into his veins and cuddling with his lovers and their cats. He was sure as hell that Bakugo was going to fail. Not because the boy didn't have the power to win. He had more than enough. Teen's hot-headedness wasn't an issue either. Student was a quick thinker in battle situations. What lost Bakugo was the flaw that couldn't be fixed easily, if it could be at all. The boy didn't possess the heroic spirit, as All Might put it. It was one of this moment, when Shota had to agree with Big Oaf. Without the right mindset, one couldn't become a hero. Not with that special scenario made for troublesome students that Nizu came up with after Endeavor. As far as he knew, only a few passed it just barely. Those who didn't never again set their sights at heroics ever again. Or so the rumor said. Glancing at the student, who still was in his costume, most likely for the last time, he couldn't help but feel a tingle of guilt. If he the problem was discussed it with the principal and other teachers earlier and appropriate aid could be given before, then maybe they could help the boy. But it was all in the past now. Stupid feelings. You already know the result, young Bakugo, so I'm moving towards more important information. Nizu begun with strict voice. Due to your failure you won't return to the 1A. Furthermore you cannot join Hero Department anymore, you shall remain in the general education. During the rest of your years here, the school will try to help with your behavior. If you still wish to become a hero, it has to be done through the SNHQT. Principal paused for a moment to allow his words to sink in. Please leave your costume in the locker. Shota watched how Bakugo didn't even flinch at the speech. The boy just stood there with his head hung low, not even daring to peek at any of them. It was just like his spirit had left his body. Young Bakugo. All Might said, stepping towards the student. Let me offer you a piece of advice. To succeed as the hero, you need to find your heroic heart. Strength alone is meaningless without the right cause. Symbol of Peace wanted to pat the boy on the shoulder, but Bakugo moved away, dragging his feet lifelessly against the floor. Suddenly Shota's mind halted abruptly and his eyes widened. The problematic student never backed down from a challenge, claiming that he's going to be next number one. At first he thought it was only a fixation about the title and recognition it gave. But now? As almost all children in current generation, Bakugo must have seen All Might as the absolute best, as some kind of measuring stick. Combine it with the boy's power is the only thing that matters, ideology and those kind of cynical words of symbol of peace. Shota couldn't help but smack his forehead. This was the worst-case scenario? Shota? Are you alright? Hisashi asked in concern. Giving out a huge, tired sigh, he answered. I think we've just screwed up kids' mentality and future. Right now, all they could do is hope that Bakugo won't do anything rash. Mei glanced at Toshi, who kept a bag with ice behind his head as close as he could. After Izuku gave them a lift back to the launching station and got the suit down from their friend, they waited for the boy to become conscious again. Her boyfriend contacted Recovery Girl, but school nurse just said to give it time and prepare an ice pack. She just shrugged it off. She was an inventor, not a doctor. A door opened and Momo walked in, changed in her school clothes. The girl offered them a bright smile and sat between her and Izuku. How are you feeling? Her girlfriend asked, glancing at their friend. Like I've been hit by a truck. Toshi answered with a groan. When he moved his neck, they all heard something crack in there. That firepower was no joke. Mei nodded at that. To blow away something as heavy as negotiator suit, one really needed to pack a lot of effort in it. Fortunately it's over now. So we can relax and focus on something other. Momo said, leaning a bit into her. She immediately grabbed the girl's hand and squeezed lightly. At this point it became some sort of the habit for her to always do it, whenever she was near her lovers and wanted a physical contact with them. Every time they appreciated it, by giving her a kiss, rubbing thumbs against her palm or petting her hair. This of course left her utterly overjoyed. Guys, what are your plans for next week? Izuku asked them with a hint of concern in his voice. Till the beginning of the training camp I'm free. Momo informed shortly. Totally free. She confirmed. Sleeping. Toshi added with all seriousness he could muster right now. Her boyfriend frowned lightly and got into his thinking position. She wondered what could get him so worked over this. Maybe he got some plans. Wait, was it time to leave Japan for good? Crap, she didn't really polish her English as much as she should. Glorious baby making and spending time with her boyfriend and girlfriend got too much in the way. She would get around it. Somehow. Inventing a baby that would automatically teach her all languages in the world. Yes, that was a way. I've got an invitation to Island. They want me to give a lecture about cold fusion and some advanced robotics. Izuku told them and bit his lips. From winning the sports festival I've already got a free ticket and can get one person with me. Island. That Island. The baby-making paradise on Earth? The place with the most brilliant minds, spending all days thinking, inventing, and making babies? And her boyfriend was going them to exchange the knowledge. She wanted to go. She needed to go. But he could only take one of them. Seeing as she and Momo were his girlfriends, they'd the priority before Toshi. Sorry, good friend. Now was the question about who exactly Izuku wanted to bring. Were they going to have a fight over it? Gosh, she hoped no. She couldn't even imagine them having a spat. If it was necessary, she would step aside and let her girlfriend go. She preferred it over arguing with her lovers. Let me guess, you don't know who you should offer a place? Momo asked, gaining a nod from their boyfriend. Fortunately for you, I've got a solution for the problem. The girl said reassuringly, with blinding smile. Miyashiro got 3 tickets and my parents decided to give them to us. And seeing as you already can go and can take someone, how about we do this? You bring Toshi with you and I take Mei. A lifesaver. A goddamn lifesaver. She didn't want to think what they would do without her. Did I tell you that I love you? Izuku asked in jocular manner. Momo chuckled at that. If my memory serves me right, you did. But I enjoy hearing it. The girl relied and leaned closer to their boyfriend to receive a kiss. Great, now she wanted kisses too. And I just love how you assumed that I want to go. Toshi said in his usual, tired tone. Do you? She asked with quirked brow. She hoped yes, having the boy with them, would make things so much more fun. Oh, he could be some sort of assistant to help them present their babies. Got nothing better to do really. He answered with shrug. And what are you going to do with the free spot? Maybe ask someone in the class? I'm sure there would be some people who were interested. Izuku proposed, while playing with their girlfriend's hair. You could make in competition and have them fight for it. Toshi added with a chuckle. She watched a sly smirk and dangerous glint in eye appear on Momo's face. She was both excited and terrified of her lover. Now, that sounds like a terrific idea. The girl told them. Mei slightly feared for the students from 1A. She really hoped that she wouldn't lose any loyal clients due to her girlfriend devices. I don't want to go. It's okay. It's going to be all right. I don't want to go. I don't to go. Hey, it's okay. Please, I don't want to go. Izuku watched the scene as Momo tried to pry away a whining Mei away from him. All while trying his best to not start laughing in the middle of the shopping center. If they only knew just what a great parody they had done from that heartbreaking scene from Infinity War. He still remembers how he and his mom almost flooded the whole apartment, thanks to the amount of tears they were pouring. Mei, please. You need to buy a dress for the party during iExpo. Momo pleaded with a sigh. I don't need it. Their girlfriend answered in whimper. Before he could do something, Momo leaned in and whispered something that made Mei stop. The girl straightened up, looked between them and smiled brightly. Bye, Izuku. I'm going to buy a dress, she all but shouted. Stealing a quick kiss, she ran away towards the closest shop with formal wear. What did you do? He asked his girlfriend with quizzical expression. He knew just how against this walkout the girl was. Momo chuckled mysteriously and gave him a peck. Woman needs to have her secrets, dear. We'll catch you later, she said, while walking away, the girls from her class following her. I honestly don't have any idea how can you keep up with them. It seems as such a drag. Toshi's monotone voice cut right it, before his mind could process what have just happened. With a small shrug, he turned around from the girls. Momo wanted to make a surprise for him and not show him their dresses. Love, I guess. Yeah, sure. The boy replied skeptically. Do we really have to buy the suits? I hate formal wear. You know, dress code and such. Izuku said, while looking around for a shop. Still, do we really have to get the tight-fitting ones? Can't we just use the mobile something? Toshi kept asking, despite already having that talk over them. Mobile armor mounting platform. MAMP for short, he supplied. The name wasn't that hard to remember. Nope. We can't transport them in normal plane. And there's too much paperwork to send them to Island. And before you ask, no. Urania still needs to undergo general checkup. And when it's going to happen? The boy asked hopefully. Not until after we get back from Island, he replied happily. His friend's displeased noises making it even sweeter. Izuku just hoped that nothing crazy would happen during their visit on Expo. Certainly that could be very problematic, if you're right, Aizawa-san. Nizu said, gazing into his cup of tea with a deep frown on his face. Eraserhead came to him, after 2 days of probably a very deep thinking, and told him his concerns about young Bakugo. If their student really saw All Might as some kind of measuring stick, then Hiro's words would no doubt prove to be a fatal blow to the boy's mentality. All they could do was to monitor the teen at school and ask his parents for help. Nizu already felt an incoming headache. Out of curiosity, what was a reaction to young Bakugo's failure? Aizawa-san hummed, while looking through window. Mostly relief. He's not the most liked individual after he almost killed Yaoyorozu 2 times. Only Kirishima was saddened by it. Not like they could blame them for it. Are they close? Young Kirishima and young Bakugo. Maybe here was some way to rescue blonde student from the potential fall into the darkness. Hard to tell. Kirishima tried to be buddy-buddy with Bakugo, but other mostly shrugged it off with usual threats. Aizawa-san replied with sigh. I see. Nizu nodded at it. He still could contact the boy and ask if he would be interested in assisting them. Yet he still had that eerie feeling in his gut. Just like the last time. Izuku peeked from the chessboard to gaze at what others were doing. Momo was sitting on the armchair and reading some romance manga that she took with her. Mei was snuggled against their girlfriend, snoring cutely in her sleep. The girl almost dropped dead on the airport. From what they'd gathered, she was too excited to rest for the night and ended up staying up till morning hours. Toshi was still lazily scrolling through the information about his new suit on the tablet. Jiro-san, who had won Momo's competition, on which he still had no clue what was about, listened to music from her phone, with the use of her quirk and kept gazing through the window. Father, your move. Puppy told him, snapping back his attention to the board. Quickly scanning through it, he saw what changed. Izuku bit back the sigh. Puppy was still an utter amateur in this. Alan took the game very quickly and became somewhat unbeatable opponent for him. Well, while they both were programs, they very different in their approach to their functioning. Taking a pawn, he moved it across the field. Checkmate, he announced. Oh, Puppy said, while hanging its head low in defeat. Izuku glanced at his friend. Toshi, want to play? He asked hopefully. He could really use a good game of chess, like the one Stan gave him. The teen looked at him dryly and rose an eyebrow. To get my ass handed to me? Language. Momo reprimanded, while turning the page. From her tone he judged that she was too caught up in her lecture to sound angry. Or was just giving up on reforming their friend's foul mouth. Yes, boss's girlfriend. Toshi replied in deadpan manner. Jiro-san snorted at the exchange. You guys are really something else. Izuku rose his eyebrow at this. What do you mean by it? Conversation would be a nice substitute for the game. The girl pointed at him. A genius millionaire, who changed the rules of physics and made a dope suit. She turned to his girlfriends. An ultra-sexy chick, from loaded family, with big brain and awesome quirk. A ball of energy, who's scarring the living shit out of her teacher and can shoot you from miles away. Finally she gazed at Toshi. And Guy, who's as tired with living as Aizawa-sensei is, that got another dope suit. She gave him the look. You're like some kind of team that's going to beat us all in heroics. Kyoko-chan, you know this is not a competition. Momo said with a chuckle. Yeah, besides, he was the one who proposed to make an armor for me. Toshi told them, while pointing at him. Only because you wanted to know how it's to fly. It was the easiest way. Izuku replied with a shrug. Not that he minded doing it. He had his own Ronin now, so it was a win in his book. That reminds me. Toshi, why did you decide to call yourself Negotiator? Momo asked in wonder, while petting Mei's hair. Izuku's head dropped a bit when he remembered the reason. When he heard it, he just kept staring blankly at the boy, while his girlfriend rolled on the floor, laughing loudly. He said that he finds it amusing to swoop down from the skies, armed to the teeth, and say that he came to talk, he said in dry tone. Yup. Their friend admitted lazily, without a trace of shame or embarrassment. If anything, he sounded somewhat proud. He caught the sight of his lover, doing exactly what he had done, while Jiro-san barked a laugh. That proves what I've just said. The girl told them victoriously. Guys, check it out, we can see the island. May called at them. Her face was all but glued to the window. He gazed at Momo in shock. When did she woke up? He asked, while getting up. I have no idea, she replied, utterly bewildered. She's a gearhead, I bet she could sniff out a gadget from miles away. Toshi told them in his usual tired manner, while peeking out from his window. Couldn't say that one better. Jiro-san admitted with a smirk. His mind tuned out any potential exchange as his eyes gazed at Island. The artificial island had a giant barrier around it, shielding it from any waves. In it were seemingly 4 different cities, with 3 of them touching the walls and 4th in the center of triangle that was made due to the green belts connecting the outer ones. There were also a huge bodies of water with some beaches in there. He couldn't really see it, but he knew that all building followed the same trend of being made out of steel and glass, which gave it some kind of clean, futuristic look. Island was a technological paradise that no nation had control over. Over 10,000 scientists, from almost every part of the world, lived here, and with them their families. All of those people dedicated their life to the research of quirks and inventing support items for heroes. Of course, there were also some gadgets that were done for public usage, but those were fewer in the numbers. What was also a kind of heartwarming for him were the multiple mails he had received from people that lived there. He didn't know how they got his address, but he really appreciated their backing and encouragement due to the situation in Japan. There were also groups that proposed him a position in their research teams or some kind of deal. He didn't straight up refuse them, but politely asked for a time to consider it. After landing, and brief wonder when Momo and Jiro-san changed into their costumes, they stepped into the belts that carried them toward security check. All of them had to get a special, electronic passports. To get those they had to present that they had no criminal record. Their background was thoughtfully scanned to ensure that none of them were any possible threat to Island. No wonder that this place prided itself for having the security comparable to Tartarus. He needed to make a special pass for Puppy to accompany them, but it wasn't any harder than clicking through some forms. Or rather having Alan do it, seeing as he was too busy with checking the work progress on Urania and Nimso. He peeked at his android, who stood a few meters behind him, carrying a green suitcase and purple carry-on baggage. A small smirk formed on his lips. He couldn't wait to use those for the special end for his lecture. It was his girlfriend's idea to make a show. At first he was rather against it, but the 2 vixens coaxed him to do it. Damn them and their sweet lips. Coming out from the security check and airport, they saw a beautiful plaza with lots of green and some interesting sculptures on it. There was a massive crowd there, but he could easily spot some heroes from Japan, who walked around the crowd, as well as heroes from other countries. Their costumes were a dead giveaway. Before they could move from the entrance, they witnessed an very interesting scene. All Might all but swarmed by the group of fans, mostly women, who gave out his autographs on various items, or body parts. All while a familiar-looking teen in costume was standing at the side and grinned dumbly at it. Izuku recognized him after a few seconds. He saw him after the stain incident in the hospital. After he was better, he remembered that was Mirio Togata, one of the big 3, the top students from Hero course in UA, and one for all successor. For the last one he easily linked the facts himself. Sir Night Eye was All Might's only sidekick, before the man opened his own office, and Togata-senpai was in turn there. I think we shouldn't get involved in this, Toshi commented, while pointing at the scene. He couldn't agree more with it. Now, if only they could find a way to get away from it quietly. And here are mine young students. His neck snapped to the side to see All Might standing before them in some triumphant pose with his face covered in lipstick smudges. Honestly, he just wanted to run away at this point. Judging from the faces of his companions, they would follow him. Unfortunately, he doubted that they could outrun number 1 hero. All Might, volume down, please, he said, while pointing at his ears. He still didn't want to get his hearing damaged by some obnoxious noises. Like Symbol of Peace screaming, for example. Actually, that sounded kind of hypocritical with May as his girlfriend. Oh, right. Sorry for it. The hero told them meekly. Wait, Then did he got rid of this lipstick? Another mystery that would forever remain unresolved and be swallowed by universe for the eternity. I didn't know that more students from our school would come. Togata-senpai said, suddenly popping out from behind All Might. Heya, greenhorns. Let's have a blast here together. The boys shouted with enthusiasm and gave them thumb up along with toothy grin. What's with that Tin guy? Jiro-san asked quietly in slightly strained tone. No idea. Toshi replied with shrug, most likely not wanting to bother himself with thinking about it. Before they could do anything, yet another strange situation occurred. A blonde girl about their age moved towards them with some kind of strange-looking pogo stick and all but threw herself at All Might, who caught her and begun spinning them in circles. All while the two of them laughed and exchanged greetings. Izuku shook his head with fond smile. Of course SHE would be his niece. Oh right. Those are my students. Symbol of Peace shouted and pointed at them with his palm. I believe I saw each and every one of you during sports festival. The girl told them, before bowing lightly. It's nice to meet you. I'm Melissa Shield, the daughter of David Shield. Izuku cut in, gaining a shocked reaction from everyone, but mostly from the teen in question. You know her? Mei questioned, while peeking at Shield-san. Her father is pretty famous inventor. He made all of All Might's costumes and many support items for heroes in America. Momo informed their girlfriend, who nodded at explanation. She's also rather well known herself. Winning several science competition in USA and getting a prize at the World Support Item Design Competition last year, he added, before smirking. She's also one of the most dedicated Iron Man's fans. You can find her at every forum involving the armor. I'm right, Melly the inventor? At first the girl kept straight face, but is quickly turned into a deep shade of red. He embarrassed her with that last bit, didn't he? For his defense, he was kind of excited to meet one of his fans. Especially the one who joined every discussion about his armor and was giving every possible explanation for how it functioned and what it could do. From his musing pulled him the overjoyed voice of Mei and Shield-san, who were geeking out around very confused puppy. The poor robot was looking around, trying to find any possible exit for itself. It gazed at him, almost begging to rescue it from being in the center of interest. Even if there was any way for him to help it, he doubted he could do it. His beloved gearhead girlfriend tended to go overboard to show the greatness of their inventions. He caught the girl looking at the case and the bag. He couldn't get the surprise spoiled so soon. Maybe we should get going? Melissa, could you take me to David? All Might asked, successfully rescuing his child from the clutches of two overzealous inventors. Thank you, number 3 favorite hero. Right. Actually Papa also wanted to meet Midoriya-san before today's party. So maybe we can all go and after that I'd guide you all around iExpo? Shield-san proposed cheerfully. That would be wonderful. Thank you very much for it. Momo replied with small bow. Then happened something that would occupy his mind for the rest of his stay on Island. The pogo stick shrunk, changing its shape to cylindrical object that could easily fit in the palm of the hand. Nanomachines. That or some kind of quirk. But he could bet all of his money and suits that nanites were used here. He heard some rumors about the success in making them, but never had a chance to verify it. This was marvelous. When quirks first showed up, all of the technological progress halted for nearly 80 years. After that, when first heroes came into play, it begun again, but scientists focused on inventing support items, leaving the rest of the technological branches in the shadow. Of course there were still people who didn't give up on them and tried to research in those forgotten fields. Unfortunately, usually there wasn't much progress. Governments of almost every country worldwide poured their money into support business. Fortunately he hoped that his, and soon also Momo's parents, company would break this trend and create something for society. Arc reactor was a good start, already showing the power of the clean energy. Shame that Japan wouldn't be getting any. His mind, while still being absolutely occupied by the fact that nanites were a thing and many possibilities of their potential usage, caught up to the fact that Island was really beautiful place. It was colorful, clean, and apparently had many attractions for tourists. He saw that Momo was asking Shield-san about something in hushed tone, while peeking at him. Did he imagine the blush on her face? Wait, how in the first place he could even see a blush through the red-tinted plastic? When they got to the one of the many laboratory buildings, he was all but swarmed by scientists. They gave him business cards, told them their names and from what research teams they were from, asked him about his inventions and so on. It all would be fine, if not only for two things. 1. They were squeezing him, taking away a precious oxygen. 2. His girlfriends were all but glaring at all the women around him, while emitting the bloodlust that would put Stain into shame. Even All Might was sweating bullets. His girls were scary. And so was suffocation by his fans. Excuse me, could you please step away from Midoriya-san? We're in hurry for important meeting. You can hold out with your questions until his lecture. Toshi called, while squeezing himself between him and the scientists. All of the inventors gazed at him sheepishly and excused themselves back to work. Really? The nerve of some people. But apparently his friend was both his roadie, but also his happy. Nice. Thanks for that, Toshi. I thought they were going to kill me. Izuku said and breathed deeply. Oxygen never tasted so good before. He looked at his friend, who apparently became his self-declared bodyguard. But why did you call me Midoriya-san? Huh? I needed to make you look like some kind of Mr. Big Shot. Otherwise, they wouldn't leave us alone. His friend replied lazily. Also, I was saving you from your girlfriends. Who knows what they would do to you? And who would pay me for my services later? A giant grin stretched Boy's lips. What? Since when he was paying Toshi? Not that he didn't have money to do it. He could probably give him enough for his family to not worry about finances for generations. Continuing their trek, while being heavily guarded by his lovers, who grabbed his hands and didn't let go, they arrived at the room filled up with carton boxes and a simple furnishing, like cupboards and a drafting table. Everything was clean and white, which certainly gave it the more futuristic look. Papa! We're here! Shield-san called joyously. From the side a door opened and through them came two men. One was rather short, chubby and middle-aged, the other. David Shield. If Izuku was asked to pick a person who would be great to be an actor for the role of Tony Stark, he would without a shade of doubt pick this man. Both were geniuses who wanted to help people with their inventions, had that kind of aura around them that just screamed genius, and were very good-looking. All Might all but rushed and enclosed the man in tight hug. The scene was touching. Yet he still caught up to the fact that number one hero was slightly supporting himself over his friend's body. Time limit must have struck the symbol of peace. If he remembered correctly, it was something around 2.5 hours. It's nice to meet you in person, Izuku Midoriya. The man said, offering a handshake. You too, Professor Shield. Your work was a great inspiration for me, he replied, while squeezing the palm. The inventor smiled a bit. Please call me David. Professor Shield makes me feel like I'm some kind of old man. In that case you can call me Izuku. Wow, already on first-name basis with one of the most brilliant scientists on Earth. I won't hold you up for long. I'm going to attend your lecture later after that, as I'm immensely interested in your work, but for now. David reached behind him and pulled a notebook and a pen. Could you give me an autograph? The man said with a sheepish look. His mind went blank for a second. Shouldn't that be the other way around? Besides, why would the world-class support inventor want his signature? A first-year high school boy. What did he do? Oh, right, rewrite a bit of physics law, create the cleanest source of energy and build a high-tech suit. He did that. He did what he was asked for, while offering a bit strained smile. He didn't expect this. And why was Shield-san glaring daggers at her dad? He wisely decided that he didn't want to get involved in this more than necessary. Thank you for that. Now why don't you enjoy the iExpo attractions, while me and Toshinori talk for a while? David proposed to them. Certainly we will. Come on, greenhorns. Let's see what this place has for us. Togata-senpai called and literally walked through the doors. Looks like the teen also caught up to the fact that All Might was running empty, but it was to be expected from his successor. Giving a small bow, Izuku and rest left the building, following the lead of Shield-san, who begun telling them about the things they could find during their stay. It all sounded interesting. Honestly, he couldn't wait to see all of the marvelous things that Island had to present to them. Expectations. It was the word used to represent someone's belief that something will happen or that someone should achieve something. Himiko held none expectations for League of Villains. When she first heard of them she was indifferent, chalking them all as a group of wannabe villains, who were throwing some kind of child tantrum, like their oh-so-great leader did last time when that Wolfram guy showed up. Another loser. Yet still, despite the fact that she wasn't expecting anything from them, she had a hard time hiding her disappointment. They literally did nothing except for sitting, drinking and staring at the walls or TV. What in the freaking hell? How those guys wanted to kill All Might or change the society, if they lazed around all day. Well, they had a plan. A very stupid plan in her humble opinion, which of course she kept to herself. A raid at the training camp of UA kids. And while Tamira rambled about how glorious it would go, she felt like bashing her head against the table. Did that? She supposed she could call him a man? Did he even know of consequences of such move? Did he even stop for a moment and thought what kind of disaster it would be, after they kidnap a kid? Or was it just another whim, while counting that sensei would save his sorry arse? Why was this missions given to her? Ah, yes, it was some kind of her final test. And her master expected her to succeed. Which of course she would. There was no way that she would let this man down. Not after everything he did for her. Still thought, she needed to get out from here or else her head was going to explode from all of this nothingness. I'm heading out, she cheerfully shouted. I suddenly want to find some hot chick and see if she can look any hotter in red. We don't need to know your sick plans, you weirdo. Dabi replied with groan, which only encouraged her crazed giggle. She really worked well on that one. Exiting from the building, while still skipping from leg to leg and humming a song to herself, she thought about what she should do. Karaoke sounded nice, she hadn't had fun in a while. A food would be nice too. She would kill for some good Chinese cuisine. A night out in Chinatown it was. Hopefully no one was going to disturb her unwinding. Otherwise the consequences of such action would be? No, that went against her master teaching. Still, what master didn't see, he wouldn't know. Most likely. Probably. God damn her beloved master and his all-knowing ability. Paradise. She was in the paradise. And she was still alive. Maybe there was some kind of technological afterlife? It didn't matter now. She was going to use this trip to the fullest and learn a lot from inventions here on Island, to make her babies even better. Oh, there was also that plan Momo came up with. Something about making Izuku fall in love with them again and even more. She didn't really get it, their boyfriend was already in love with them, but her girlfriend was more knowledgeable when it came to being in relationships, wasn't she? Besides, how could they accomplish by knocking his socks off? Melissa, because calling the girl by her surname was a bit annoying to her for some unexplained reason, took them to the pavilion filled to the brim with high-tech goodies. During their walk, the teen kept pointing at all sorts of different buildings with questionable shapes. She wasn't an architect, so she just nodded at it without much thought. But now was her time to shine. Mei glanced at Izuku and saw exactly what she wanted. A competitive, greedy glint in his eyes and a pumped-up aura around him. Her boyfriend also peeked at her and nodded in understanding. Great, now that he was on board, the glorious baby-making could be done even more efficiently than by herself. They started off with a weird, rectangular helmet. Apparently it could give up to 36 different feeds. Victory, Suit's helmet could give more and in different modes. Step up your game, Island's inventors. Next was a plane or something looking like it. Besides flying, it can also go underwater. Melissa informed them. They already had a similar build. Could they make it waterproof? Maybe, but that wouldn't cut it. They needed to make it even more awesome. Oh, making it able to go into space. Yes, that was the way. Another thing, that ticked her off immensely, she could chalk up as an act of stealing. A suit that was able to withstand the pressure at 7 kilometers underwater. Okay, kids' gloves were coming off. She and Izuku would make an armor that would go deeper. Like 30 kilometers. Wait, was ocean that deep? Maybe? Even if it wasn't, she would still do it. They had the patents for kick-ass suits. There was even more babies, but those seemed less exciting. Besides, she was still trying to figure out how to make such an armor. Plus she was a bit in foul mood, because they hadn't made that kind of suit. Something nice and slightly wet pressed against her temple, breaking her out from sulking. Looking to the side, she saw Momo smiling at her reassuringly. And just like that, all negativity left her. Was that so-called the power of love? All of this is really impressive. Kyoka said, gazing around the hall. Oh, just wait till they get back to Japan. If she thought this was impressive, what would she call Urania or Nimso? She couldn't wait to show the world those marvelous babies. Most of this was creating using Papa's patents. He's one of the most recognizable scientists here. Melissa told them in prideful manner. Ha, the professor is really awesome then. The vault guy replied, taking a look at a red orb and nodding to himself. I'm kind of afraid to see what Izuku and Mei would have on their accounts, when they're his age. Toshi commented, while gazing at her and her boyfriend. How was she supposed to know? Maybe they would get super famous by terraforming Mars. Nah, that was too small for them. Oh, space travel and warp gates. Yeah, that sounded like something more in their department. Everyone, would you like to go to the cafe and rest a little? Melissa asked them kindly. That sounds wonderful. Momo answered for their group. She couldn't agree more. Cafe meant napkins. Napkins meant being able to make blueprints. Because why wait till getting back to Japan, when she already could start making plans here? Shame there wasn't any Holatable here or something similar. This baby really got the work cut from them. Izuku played with his tablet a little, waiting for his drink. He was more than in the mood to make new version of his armor. That deep-sea suit from Exposition was like a thorn in his side. Actually maybe an over-armor would be better? This way he store it and deploy it for all his suits, not just a particular one. If you think too hard about it, a vein will pop in your head or something. Toshi said, gazing at his work lazily. He let out a snort. If something like this was going to happen, then it would be a long time ago. You're a damn workaholic, Izuku. You know it, right? His friend pushed farther, making him stop. So, you're suggesting for me to stop and do what exactly, he questioned, not seeing a sense in the logic here. Why would I know? Toshi replied with a shrug. A laugh from Togata-senpai reached him. Turning to the teen, he saw a giant grin on his face. You guys are really amusing. The light of your friendship is really strong and amazing. Ah, youth. The teen informed them, giving up a thumb up. He peeked at Toshi, who did the same at him. They blinked at each other and returned their sight at their upper classmate. In this short exchange, they agreed about one very important thing. Togata-senpai was way too weird to hold a normal conversation with. Gazing at girls' table, he saw Momo, Jiro-san and Melissa holding some small conversation. The girl insisted on being called by her name, after May started doing it. As for his other girlfriend, she was scribbling on a napkin with a pen, which no doubt their lover had to make for her. She seemed to be super focused on whatever she was making. He was more than sure that he would have to hear her talking about it for hours, only to get too wrapped up around the idea and start throwing his thoughts about it. Here's your drink. Someone said, putting a glass in front of him. Wait a second. He knew that voice. Turning to the side, he saw Kaminari-kun dressed in waiter outfit. Hey! How did you got here? He asked, trying to start a conversation with the boy. The teen was likable and seemed funny to be around. Momo told him about how he stood up for him, when their classmates said some things about him. They needed staff for iExpo, so me, Mineta and Kirishima filled the applications. The pay isn't bad and during our breaks we can go and see what's around. Kaminari-kun replied with a grin. Work hard, I guess. Still though, Izuku is paying better. Toshi said and took a sip from his cup. Once again, since when he was paying his friend for anything? Or was this just some kind of joke that he didn't get? Kaminari forgot about one important thing. Mineta said, popping out of nowhere and taking a victorious pose. We're here to get tons of ladies as the students from UA Hero course. He blinked at it, feeling completely lost. What did one had to do with another? No, Izuku, stop thinking about it, this would only make matter worse. What's with this, perverted, little kid? Togata-senpai asked in unreadable tone, pointing his finger at drooling midget. Sorry for him, he's just like that. Kaminari-kun told them, bowing lightly. Must have fallen on his head or something. Toshi commented. And while it was rude, he had hard time disagreeing. Suddenly a huge gust of wind rushed past them, swooping two students from their feet. What are you doing? You came here to work, not goof around. Ida-kun shouted at them. The teen was wearing his costume without a helmet. Ida? You also got an invitation? Jiro-san asked loudly. Yes. My family got us some tickets. Unfortunately my parents were busy with agency's matters and my brother is still undergoing a rehabilitation. So I came in their place to represent our family. The boy explained, waving his hands around in robot-like manner. How is your brother doing? Momo questioned in curiosity. A small smile made his way on teen's lips. Gazing at him and nodding, he replied. Very good actually. He can now walk normally. Doctor said that he may be able to jog a little in month or two. That's good to hear. Ingenium was really a great hero to have around. I hope that he gets better and better. Togata-senpai told them with blinding smile on his lips. Thank you for those kind words. Ida-kun said, bowing deeply to their senior. Those were some good news indeed. The prosthetics were about to be released on the market. No doubt they would make a huge boom, giving many paralyzed people a chance to function again normally. This would be a great start to make society better. Guys, gimme a hand at the back. We need to unload the delivery for tomorrow's opening. A voice from the cafe's entrance called. In the door was Kirishima-san, dressed in the same waiter outfit as his classmates. When the boy saw them all, he gave them a wave and smiled a little. Although Izuku saw that, the teen peeked at him awkwardly. If he remembered correctly, he and Bakugo were buddies or something akin to it. At least that was what Momo told him. Did he had a grudge against him? No, it didn't seem like it. If he got occasion, he would ask for a talk. Didn't know you guys were coming to iExpo. Kirishima-san said in surprise. If you want to hit something fun, then I suggest Villain Attack. A few guests talked about it. The boy recommended. That would be perfect attraction for hero students. You basically have to destroy robots in the arena. The faster you do it, the better is your placement in the leaderboard. Melissa explained to them. It may be worth looking into. Jiro-san commented, playing with her earphone jack. We should go there next as a group. Togata-senpai suggested, flexing his fist. This would be a perfect occasion to see the teen's original quirk and One for All in action. He was actually more interested in the other one. Just because he didn't accept this overwhelming power, didn't mean he wasn't curious about it. This particular quirk grew stronger with each person, slowly stockpiling energy over time. That meant Togata-senpai was bound to be more powerful than All Might was. And while it was good to have such ally on their side, he had some concern about it. He would address those after going back home. Izuku, we're going. Momo announced, standing right next to him with sulking Mei at her side. Mei, what's wrong? He asked, rising up and gazing at his girlfriend in worry. I didn't get to finish my blueprint, she informed him with adorable pout. A short chuckle escaped from his throat. His girl was really something else. Leaning a bit, he gave her a swift kiss on her lips, which seemed to brighten her up. You can do it later. I can help you with it, if you want, he kindly proposed. I can too. I think that after all those hours in your lab, I picked up a thing or two about designing. Momo added with eyes shining from excitement. Seems like she too caught a virus for inventing. Mei gave them big, juicy kisses and grinned widely at them. You guys are the best, she shouted joyously. Looking ahead of them, he saw their group ready to leave. Although Togata-senpai was gazing at them cluelessly and Melissa with huge blush on her face. He and his girls let out a chuckle. He and Momo, because they knew that they made those two lost and uncomfortable. Made it just to follow their example. To Melissa and Fallout Boy. Those three are an item. Deal with it. Toshi explained in deadpan manner, while pointing at them with his thumb over his shoulder. Ah, youth is such powerful. Togata-senpai shouted into the skies, making them all sweat drop. They couldn't read that guy at all. Nizu gazed around Sir Nightai's office. He knew that All Might was popular and had an outstanding amount of merchandise, but seeing it all neatly packed inside one room was something else. Taking up his cup of tea and sipping a little, he looked at the hero, who was peeking through the window at the busy streets of the city. A seemingly motionless and stoic face didn't move even a millimeter. Is something troubling you? Nizu kindly asked. Sir turned to him and rose his cup, but refrained from drinking from it. No. I was just in deep thoughts. The man replied in monotone voice, that perfectly hid any emotions. When you called, you said that you want to talk about something important. A smirk passed his features. Even with this tone, he could still sniff out that tiny hint of curiosity. Fondling his paws nicely on his lap, Nizu looked straight into Nightai's eyes. I know that you've used your quirk on young Midoriya during the visit in hospital. Since then I was really intrigued about it, because it was enough to break your stoic facade, he announced in great excitement. Let one not be fooled. He tried to think about it on his own. However, after racking his brain day after day for even a clue, he came in empty-handed. Sir, who was about to take a sip from his cup, stopped his movement and instead put it down. Settling his elbows on the desk and joined his hand together. Leaning his head a bit forward and supporting his upper lip against his palms, Night-Eye gazed straight ahead. A small frown marred his features. Nizu waited patiently for the man to begin. He wasn't in rush, seeing as he cleaned up his schedule for the rest of the day. Usually when I use foresight, I see an event from the future. I can witness where that person is and what is doing. Sir explained slowly. Am I safe to assume that it wasn't the case with young Midoriya? Nizu questioned, feeling his excitement rising every second. The man nodded lazily. I saw our world completely shrouded in darkness. A raging battle in the middle of the barren, flaming land, that was once a city full of life. Suddenly a blinding light splits the sky in two. In this light I saw Izuku Midoriya in his suit and at his sides darkened figures of his comrades. Night-Eye told him, yet his voice was a bit shaky. Nizu gaped at the man before him, his mind processing the information. As far as he knew, Sir's visions were always precise. Even if he couldn't tell the date of it, in case of the events that were far away from them, they always became the reality. From this he got two things. 1. Something truly terrible was awaiting for them in the future. And 2. Young Midoriya would be the key player for their survival and victory. A cold chill shook his body and his stomach sunk a bit. Nizu of course was an atheist, but he sure would start praying every night to every deity there is, asking for their help. Izuku vaguely noted that arena was about the size of the UA stadium used for sports festival. In the middle of it was something similar to Mountain Arena in USJ, although he caught the sight of Simple River running through it. Glancing around he saw quite a few people enjoying the show that heroes, who were taking part in the activity, put for them. He had to give it to them, that they had some impressive moves, like seasoned veterans should possess. Yet the current leader's time barely passed 30 seconds mark. Taking a closer look at the enemies in Villain Attack, he saw the robots of various colors and similar shapes. They were about as big as 3-pointers UA used. Still though. Father. Puppy called him, still gazing at the arena. Those robots are like dummy. Useless and stupid. A snicker escaped from his mouth. His child was thinking exactly the same what he was. He briefly remembered a moment when he came to the lab and saw Puppy putting a white, spiky, paper hat with a word dunce on it. Apparently it and Alan were in agreement about May's creation not being their sibling. Something lightly hit his side. Turning to his right, he saw Toshi pointing at Arena with his head. Oh, right, it was Togata-senpai's turn. The team was standing at the starting point. At first everything seemed normal, but it all changed in next second. A white lightning begun appearing along the boy's body, making cracking sound around him. There was a lot of them, constantly shrouding the student due to their intensively. So that was one for all. He knew about Togata-senpai's original quirk. After all it was thanks to his file, that Momo's costume was upgraded to what it is nowadays. The teen's first quirk was tricky due to it functioning. And now having one for all atop of it? Right when the announcer called a start, Togata-senpai dashed straight ahead, showcasing his unbelievable speed. Instead of jumping, the teen sunk into the mountain, only to pop out not even a second later, taking down one of the robots with vicious uppercut. Holy crap, he's good. Toshi commented in slight awe in his voice. Language. Momo and Itakuin said in perfect sync. Although he sensed that his girlfriend was slowly giving up on reforming their friend. He had to agree with the boy. Togata-senpai was good. Scratch that, he was amazing. The teen made it look like he had no trouble with utilizing both quirks at once, however Izuku suspected that it put quite a mental and physical strain on him. And time. We have a new leader with a truly great score. 10 seconds. Announcer shouted into her microphone, making the crowd cheer loudly at the display the boy gave them. Togata-senpai kept waving to everyone at the arena as he was coming to the exit. However, instead of actually going in, the teen stepped into the wall, sinking into it, only to jump out of the floor next to them. Tada! That's how you do it, greenhorns. The teen told them, taking a victorious pose, similar to All Might's. Not bad, Tin-Tin. Jiro-san commented, gazing at the field with destroyed robots. I agree with my classmate. The display of your abilities was truly befitting of UA student. Itakuin added, waving his hand around. What's with the lighting thought? Though you can only pop in and out from the things. Toshi asked with Lei's voice. Izuku quirked his brow at it and turned to Togata-senpai. He wondered about what kind of excuse his senior and number one hero prepared. Or maybe Sir did it for them. Oh, that? I started sometime after sports festival. Doctor said that it had to do something with my quirk dealing with more constant usage of it. The boy said with ever-smiling face. That was it? He blinked dumbly at the teen, but refrained from face-palming. Only All Might could think of something so utterly inane. Suddenly a gust of freezing wind blew at them and a giant, crystal mass of ice sprung to life, encasing whole mountain in it. Snapping his gaze down there, he saw Todoroki-san rising from his knee and stretching out his right arm. Glancing at May, he saw her tensing a bit at the sight of Glacier. Looks like she still had to deal with her trauma, despite forgiving the boy. Stepping next to his girlfriend, he took her hand and squeezed it, while sending a reassuring smile. From the other side, Momo did the same. This seemed to calm down their easily excited lover, who relaxed and snuggled as close to them as possible, with adorable smile on her lips. I'll go and see Todoroki-kun. Maybe he wished to join us in our exploration of iExpo. Itakuin announced, before speeding off. I must say, that you, UA students, are really amazing. You must have worked hard to get to this level. Melissa told them in awe, clearly not used to such shows. Of course. We're all aiming to become a hero. Togata-senpai commented loudly. Would you guys mind waiting a bit longer? I want to try it too. Momo asked them, already making her way down to the arena. However, Izuku caught up to something. While the smile on her face was kind and graceful, the glint in her eyes made him very wary of what was about to come. They waited a moment, before his girlfriend stepped onto the arena. A light of creation already shining from her whole front. When announcer was mid-shout to start the activity, from the girl's torso showed up a tripod and after it, Gatling gun with a belt of bullets coming from her belly. A rain of bullets showered at the mountain, chipping away the rock and piercing right through the robots' carcasses. After nearly 20 seconds of constant fire, Momo stopped her assault, leaving the field with satisfied smile on her lips and small skip in her step. What? Melissa asked in weak voice, clearly stupefied at the show. And I thought that May was insane. Toshi said with audible gulp. You can say that again. Jiro-san added, gazing dumbly at the smoking remains of the robots. Mama is crazy. Puppy told them while shuddering. He had hard time disagreeing with their words. Peeking at May, he saw that the girl was as lost as he. And the obnoxious, full-belly laughter from Togata-senpai didn't help the situation one bit. Ah, that felt great. It's a fantastic stress releaser. Momo said, showing seeming out of nowhere behind him and their girlfriend. The girl leaned down, stealing a kiss from them. Where to next, she asked in cute and innocent manner, as if she just didn't destroy the arena with one of the most feared guns. Fortunately for them, next attractions weren't as scarily exciting as Villain Attack was. From all the games they hit on, his most favorite one was a quick-paced game of chess against supposedly very advanced AI. He had to agree that while it gave him clearly more challenge than Puppy, it was nowhere near Alan's level of play. It wasn't really surprising to him that May won the shooting game, placing first in the ranking with a huge disparity of points between her and second place. The girl even was cocky enough to say that she handicapped her concurrence by not using her quirk fully. This of course put a giant smile on his and Momo's faces. If their lover was already this good without her Hawkeye mode, as she called it, they were excited to see what she can do with it. But there was one thing that put a mischievous smirk on his lips. He caught the sight of Toshi clearly checking out their dear guide, Melissa. From the looks of it, Momo also saw this, but signaled him to keep it quiet for now. Right, first they would gather blackmail material, then torture their friend with it to no end. Returning to the cafe, they saw their schoolmates completely whipped after the day of hard work. And today was just a pre-open. He wondered how busy it would be when I-Island opened tomorrow for everyone. Out of sheer curiosity he would swing by and see when his lecture ended. Glancing at the guys, he saw them thanking Melissa. Ah, right, the girl had a few free passes for tonight's reception party and decided to give it to them. A very nice gesture from her. Seeing as we're all going to the party, why not attend as a group? Momo proposed, standing before them with a hand on her hip. That's a fantastic idea, Yaoyorozu-san. As expected from our class president. Itakuin commented, continuing his robot act. Where and when do you suggest? Todoroki-san asked quietly. The boy was really slowly making progress to become more social. How about a western entrance at 7 o'clock? The girl asked, gaining a nod from them. Midoriya-san? Melissa said, grasping his attention. Could you come with me to my lab? I'd like to show you my invention and ask about your opinion. The girl made it sound rather important. I will go too. May exclaimed with bright sparks in her eyes. No, ma. We need to get ready for the party. Momo said sternly, catching their girlfriend and dragging her away, despite a loud protest. Izuku, don't take long, okay? Don't worry, I'll make sure that he arrives on time. Toshi commented, giving the mock salute. Before his lovers left them, Momo turned around and gave him the look that once again flared up his danger sense. He knew that gaze and expression too well. It was like she was some sort of pride lioness and he was a juicy piece of meat. He wasn't sure if he should pat himself on the shoulder or punch hard in the face for suggesting to her to study under midnight. Following Melissa, they wandered into the famous academy. The school was one of the most prestigious one in the world, being a huge concurrency for UA's Gen Ed and support course, despite being open for about 5 years by now. The girl took them to her own lab. It was much smaller compared to his and May's. In the middle was a drafting table with some things on it. On its sides were a computer desk with flat-screen monitor and a small assembly machine. There were also shelves holding books, family's photos and Melissa's trophies from many competitions. "I'm sorry for the mess. I don't have guests that often," she said sheepishly, before opening another door that revealed a storage room. "Nah, it's pretty clean here for me. You should see their lab after May messes up," Toshi commented, giving out chuckle. Was he trying to score some brownie points? I should feel a bit offended by it, but I have hard time disagreeing. Izuku admitted, remembering the state of their workshop after the explosive arrow mishap. Cleaning it took them almost 3 days, which mostly was due to a paint job they had to do. "You're a first year and already have your own lab? Here, we have to wait till our 3rd year to get one," the girl said with a hint of sadness in her voice. She emerged from the storage with a small black box. Opening it and taking its content out, she showed them a red, metal wristband with a dark blue button in the middle of it. Which one of you would like to test it? I assure that it's completely harmless," Melissa told them, gazing a bit uncertain between them. Toshi rolled up his right sleeve and extended his arm to the girl. "I'm already his assistant for the lecture, so why not?" The girl smiled kindly and put the gadget on the boy's wrist. "Please push the button in the middle." His friend nodded and did exactly like instructed. The device gave out a bright blue light and began to shapeshift, growing on Toshi's forearm, covering it fully and taking a bit on his fingers. When the glow faded, it revealed to be something similar to boxing tape in red color with a bit of dark blue material showing through spaces between wraps. Over the knuckles was an oval-shaped piece also in dark blue color. The boy gazed at it with awe and moved his arm around, showing that gadget didn't restrain him in any way. "I've built it after watching Uncle Mite's videos, showcasing his strength. It can withstand the full force of his power up to 3 times. Melissa explained to them with a bit of pride in her tone, which he guessed was pretty well deserved. Such a device was extraordinary. He had yet to measure how much power All Might's punch could pack, but he was sure it was quite a lot, if those could change atmospheric pressure and produce rain. How something so big could come out from such a small wristband? Toshi asked, still playing around with the device. "Nanomachines, am I right?" Izuku questioned with confidence. "If there was a god, please let it be nanites." Melissa gave out a small laugh and smiled brightly. "You're quite correct, Midoriya-san. Thanks to Papa's connection with the team, who dedicated their research to them, I could get my hand on some. If this stuff is so convenient, then why isn't it used more?" the boy asked with quirked eyebrows. The girl scowled a little, before her face returned to neutral expression. "There are a few issues. For starters, they don't have much subsidy to make fast progress in their research. The process of producing nanomachines is long and very costly. The more durable construction is desired, the more problematic it is to keep it stable. For example, my pogo stick needs maintenance every 2 to 3 months, depending on how often I use it." Melissa explained them with a loud sigh at the end. There went his hopes and dreams on getting suit similar to Mark L in the near future. At the very least the technology already existed, but needed a little help. Maybe after some talks with his in-laws from Momo's side, he could get their company to invest in it or make a partnership contract. Gosh, he wanted that armor so bad. Midoriya-san? Can I ask you something?" Melissa's timid voice pulled him out from his musing. Nodding quickly, the girl swallowed hard and gazed anywhere but at him. "To tell you the truth, I'm also quirkless," she announced, fully grasping his and Toshi's attention. It was obvious that she was revealing something very personal. Something that he knew too well. "When I was younger, I had dreamed about being a hero, but when I heard the diagnosis, I gave up." A small hiccup escaped from her throat. "To cope with it, I turned my sight to science, thinking that I could become someone like Papa. A hero for heroes. I thought that it was enough for me. That I should be content with it." First tears streamed down from her eyes. "Yet when I saw you and your suit, when I heard that you made arc reactor that was powering up your whole region, I felt ashamed of myself. I didn't thought about using technology to be a hero like you. I was so broken by it." Melissa looked at him with her red, puffy eyes and shaky, broken smile. "Do you think that despite everything, I can still be a hero?" A sharp pang struck his heart. A flood of memories from his childhood hit him like a tidal wave. He too asked this question to his mom, a day before going to comic book shop. Of course the answer was truly soul-crashing. After meeting Stan and dedicating to becoming a real-life Iron Man, things were better. Although it still took him a few years to learn how to deal with constant abuse and mockery from other kids. Smiling lightly, but putting as much feeling as he could in it, he answered in soft, serene voice. Of course you can. All you have to do is try and never back down. Izuku is right. Toshi said, putting the gadget into a box. When your heart longs for something, you need to be stubborn and do not give in. You can be quirkless or have a villainous quirk, but it doesn't mean that you can't be a hero. A huge grin showed on his lips. If anything, it gives you even bigger motivation to prove everyone, who ever doubted you, wrong. Yourself included. Izuku chuckled at the rare display of his friend's spirit. That fiery speech was really something else. What he said? Melissa sniffed and lifted up her glasses to wipe off the tears. Thank you for that. I really needed it, she said in wobbly voice. Taking a few deep breaths and straightening her back, she gazed at them with a huge, graceful smile on her lips. Izuku counted it as another great achievement in his hero career. He saved another broken person and most likely gave world a great heroine. He couldn't wait to see her join him, his girlfriends and friend on the field of heroics. You two should head to the hotel and get ready for the party. Sorry for keeping you this long, Midoriya-san, Shinso-san. Melissa announced, bowing to them. No problem really. We're glad we could help you. Izuku said, making Toshi nod at it. Plus you can call us by our names. It's only fair when we refer to you by yours. The girl gazed at them with relief and joy. Of course. I'll see you at the party, Izuku, Hitoshi, she called happily, when they neared the exit. He was glad for everything that had just happened. He gained another friend and more blackmail material against his friend. He certainly didn't miss that deep, red blush on the boy's cheeks when Melissa said his name. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe and support the original writer Mr. Cage. See you guys in the next part.